Welcome to our Power BI 101 training course. My name's Ross Waterston, consultant at Geordie Consulting and probably the face of Geordie Intelligence, although I try to keep myself behind the camera, never really worked out that way. What I wanted to do today was let's start our first journey into Power BI. Let's have a look at what Power BI does and how it actually works so that we can learn to become Power BI developers, be that I'm going to be a full-time hardcore Power BI developer, be it, I want to be a data analyst, but I need to learn a little bit about Power BI to make my job work better, or even quite like using Power BI, wouldn't mind being able to do a little bit more. Any of those, this course is really going to help you. We're going to go through at a low pace, keep things as simple as we can. Don't forget, add comments down below, send us emails, inquiries if you're not sure. Tell us if there's anything that you're not quite, I didn't quite understand that bit. If you don't tell us, we might not answer it the way you need it, and that'll hold you and your development back. But I can also almost guarantee if there's something you're thinking, somebody else will also be thinking it. So get in there, ask the question. Geordie Intelligence is, of course, a YouTube channel. As such, we're completely dependent on you, our viewers, liking, subscribing, and ideally interacting more with the posts. The more you do, the more you help the YouTube algorithm, and the more you help yourself, especially with course content like this that we're producing at the moment. So buckle in and let's get started. I want to start here, okay? Because I think this is something that you need to see about Power BI to really kind of hopefully get the things to kind of just, I get it now. I understand what I'm doing. What's the challenge that we've got, right? So the whole purpose of Power BI comes down to really, it's pages like this and what they show an organization about what's going on. And you might well have seen images like this where, we've got this dashboard. It's brilliant. Look, I can see everything that's going on. And that's only part of the picture with Power BI. The reality and really where the power comes from is that it's interactive. So in this case, if I was to click on a particular area here, you'd see everything on the page updates to reflect what I've selected. If in turn I just hover over it, you see we've got a tooltip that flies out. So it opens up something, tells me more information about my report. If we go somewhere else, it tells me something different. Okay? It gives me information about something else. This is one of those things. This is called cross-filtering, okay, or cross-highlighting, depending on how you've done it. This is set up to be cross-filtered. Cross-highlight would show you the raw, and then just with the variances and everything grayed out. We won't really cover it at the moment. The difference isn't there. You don't need to worry. The important thing is this. Everything is interactive and can do this because of the data model. Okay? Within Power BI, the data model is called the semantic model. Okay? One of the terms that you'll hear mentioned an awful lot in the context of Power BI and modeling is fact and dimensions. So you might hear fact tables, dimensions, star schema. You may even hear things referred to as a Kimball schema. What those mean is what we're going to talk about today. Okay? So we'll go through, we'll make sense of it, and then because of what we've done, we'll start to be able to do things a bit similar to this visual, but they'll be simpler. Here we are in Power BI Desktop. One of the things I want to do, and I think it's really important for you to see, is I'm going to sign out of my account. So I'm going to click sign out, sign myself out of Power BI Desktop. I'm now not logged in, okay? I'm not using any Microsoft account. I think it's really important for you to recognize that you don't need a license to use Power BI Desktop, okay? If you want to learn how to do Power BI and your company will say, we're not paying for you to have a license, download Power BI Desktop. You can use it on your home PC with, obviously not with company data. You can use it with whatever you want, download some data, use it to learn. In this example, as I say, will go through with me signed out, so that I can't use anything that would be Microsoft related or proof that this is entirely unlicensed and free for you to use. So the first thing we're going to do, okay, is we need to get some data, right? Modeling starts with get data. Power BI Desktop has a get data view here where we can go to get data. But before we do all that, let's just fix a couple of things that will come back and cause us problems in the future. So it's simple enough to do. Let's have a look at a couple of settings that Power BI has in a particular way that just cause problems. So we'll change them now, and then we can move forward. Firstly, we're going to click File, and then we're going to go down to Options and Settings, and Options. Under Options, you'll find we need to go to two places. The first one is at the top, under Data Load. We need to untick Auto Date Time for new files. Okay. For some reason, Microsoft still turn it on, still on by default. I would really rather they didn't. It's been a bugbear of mine the whole time I've worked with Power BI. So don't worry. If you forget to do this, easy done. I've often done it, especially when I've got a new laptop or anything like that coming through. Forget to turn it on. And the last thing we need to do is under current file, just do exactly the same thing. We're going to click data load. We're going to tick to auto date time, turn that off, and we're going to click OK. Simple enough to do, wasn't it? Wasn't too complicated so far. So what we're going to look at is something, it's a data set that was originally produced for Tableau report pack. It's synthetic data, so it's made up. So there's a lot of challenges that it just doesn't have, but it's nice for us to use just to learn the principles of modeling. So what we can do is we can click to download it. I've put it up on the GitHub site that we've produced for content related to all the work that we do as a YouTube channel. I'll put a link to it down below, but I'll also put a link to the original source that we've got. Okay? The original source had it as an XLS file or an old-fashioned Excel file, which they do work with Power BI, but there's caveats with those. So I've made it, I've converted it into a CSV file, which is simpler, still works, and it's just an easier way for us to go through. So the link to GitHub is to our CSV file, but there's a second link, which is to the original source, so I will credit the person who came up with it. Not me, it's nothing to do with us, we did not create this. Now we've got that clear, let's begin. So the first thing we need to do is go to Get Data. Under Get Data, we're going to choose text or CSV. Right? In this case, it's a single file, so we'll just go and we'll pick the file type that we need. I'm going to pick text, CSV. I'm going to browse to the location, which is here. I'm going to pick the file. So this will be wherever you've downloaded it to, probably your downloads folder. I'll choose to open it. It's going to say it's connecting to the file and then produce something that's going to show me a sample of the file. Okay. At this point, what we need to do is we need to click Transform Data. Again, this is a bugbear of mine I've had for many, many years is, oh, load looks like I should click it. Load. If it's really simple, you can get away with load, but because we want to learn, we're going to click Transform Data. Okay, so we're going to click Transform. So we click to transform the data, and that brings us into the Power BI Query Editor. Now, this is a really important part of Power BI Desktop and Power BI as a whole. So at the top, and I'll just zoom in a bit, at the top, we've got an overview of where we are, and we've got the menus similar to what you'll see in the Office suite now. We've got our home, we've got transform, add columns, view, and tools. Simple, nothing too much. In terms of what you'll use, most of what you need is going to be between home and add columns. Okay? That's your practical use case that you'll be doing. You've got home, which gives us a lot of options that we can do. We've got transform, which involves transforming something, and we've got add columns, which involves adding a column. So typically transform will be transform that column. Add columns will let's produce a new column, as well as home. What we can see we have here as we look across is we've got some things. We've got a row ID, so that's like a unique identifier for the row, like an index that would be considered. We've got an order ID. Again, there's something in there. We can see it's not unique to each row. We can see that, like, for example, here, this one has multiple row IDs within this order. So an order can exist, and then lots of rows further down to it. So like an invoice, if you think of an invoice, at the top you have the header, and then below it you'll have the list of items that are within it. So we've kind of got a header and all the items all put together as one big table. That's how to think of this. We've got some dates. So we've got an order date. So when was the order made? And we've got the ship date. So when was the order shipped to the person? And the two aren't necessarily the same. Got the mode of shipping. So was it sent first class, standard class, second class? Is there another one? We can click the arrow and see what other options there are in here. So we've got first class, same day, second class, standard class. And we see because there's so much, and our sample that we're sampling to build this isn't complete, it's telling us the list might not be complete. We've got customer IDs, so we can see if customers potentially are ordering different things, the same things. Got their ID, their name, what kind of a customer they are, their segment as it were, the country, city and state information for them, so all their address information really. Let me zoom out of here so we can scroll across a bit further. Okay. And then let's zoom back in. Let me move the mouse back up. There we go, zoom in. Okay. We've got product information, so the actual product ID, which then relates to a category, a subcategory, and a product name. Got a sale amount, the quantity, a discount, and then lastly, we've also got profit. So if we scroll across, so we can see we've got the sales amount, how many items were in the sale, if there was a discount applied, and then what our profit was on that sale. Okay, so it's brilliant. We can kind of work out everything that's going on. In theory, we could even work out things like what's the actual unit price and see if the unit prices are changing or something like that. I'd probably avoid it given that there's postage involved here. So potentially, again, this is where the synthetic nature of this data set would come back and cause us problems. But what we have is some really clear pieces of information here. We've got products, we've got customers, and we've got orders, really, haven't we? That orders have happened. Okay. So we mentioned facts and dimensions. Now, facts and dimensions are all what this is going to be about, because when you build your models, what you're looking for is a way of aggregating a column. So our aggregation would be looking at, say, the sales column. So I would say, give me the total sales for, say, Brentford CR 4,500, 4,500 series semi-rectangular tables. Okay? And we could go away and calculate that by looking at the total of the sales column for that. We could look at the total profit, look at things like average discount. There's things we can do. We could look at how many were sold, count of quantity, or the sum of quantity, sorry. All of these will work for us. What we need to understand, though, is how can we put that into a model that's going to be efficient and scalable, so that it means, for all we've just got a spreadsheet now, if my company ran for 20 to 30 years, it might be a bit too big for a spreadsheet, but I'd still want to be able to quickly and easily see what had happened and to go through and look at my data. So how would I do all this? And this is really what data modeling is about. So we've got our sample data store here. What the data is all through, got everything in. Okay. One of the things I'm going to do, and it's not so much one of those things that's best practice. It's one of those things that I use a lot, and I know a lot of other developers do as well. And that is, we've got our baseline, which is this raw source data. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here and I'm going to untick the enable load. Okay. So if we zoom in, so you've got enable load. I'm just going to tick that. And what that means is it's not going to bring this table into our report pack. And then what we can do is we can right click here and we can come down to reference it. So we choose to reference. So I'm going to double click on it now and just rename it. We'll do this a couple of times. We're going to call this product. We'll do it one more time. So back on the top, Sales Superstore, the one that is in italic because it's not being loaded through. I'm going to reference that. And this is going to be customers. So we've got products, customers, and then lastly, what we will do is we will reference it one more time. And this is going to be orders. Okay. So we've got three tables that are all effectively the same as the first one. So for products, we've got products selected here. What I'm going to do is, I will zoom out. It's half the problem. I can't see what's going on. Is I'm going to select the columns for products. So we've got the product ID through to product name. So we've got just those four columns. What I'm going to do next, zoom in again, is I'm going to right click and choose to remove other columns. Okay, so we've removed everything that wasn't those four columns, basically what we've said. And we can see it says there, table, select columns, just these ones. Okay. I've got one more thing to do. All right. Now, I know, because I've done this before, that there's an issue with this data set. Right? And this is one of those things that's a real world thing that you might find happens. So if, for example, we turned round and we did what we'd normally do, what we would do with customers, but I'll show you on here. Okay. So if we went and selected everything, so hold down the shift key and select all four columns. Yeah, or you can do like that, select all four. I'm holding down the control key. If I then said remove duplicates, so right click, remove duplicates, the assumption would be, well, I've now got a list of unique things, haven't I? It's unique. Product IDs should be unique. This has given me that list of unique IDs that I need. So if we pick here, right, and we'll do this and then we'll undo it. I just want you to see what's happening here and why we're going to do something in a particular way with this table. We've got here. So if I say group by, so we're going to choose to group by product ID and just a count of rows. Okay, so what we're saying is group by how many rows are there in there? And of course, they should all be one, shouldn't they? But we can see there are several that are two, okay? Or rather, we can put in here where they are not one. Okay, so there's only two, or up to two. We could see that would be more than two. So there are things or products that presumably, for whatever reason, we can highlight there. I'm just going to copy that so we can see what I'm talking about. They've ended up being duplicated. Okay, so I'm going to click on the cross here, and that's one of the things you can do. And we'll do the same with this remove duplicates. But first off, let's just check and see what's happening with that. So if we go to text filters, where product ID equals, and we'll paste in the product ID, we can see here that the same product ID has gone from being Howard Miller, 3 foot 3¼ inch, wall clock, to some solid wood frames. So I think somebody's definitely made a mistake, it'd be what I would say. But again, data, synthetic data, these are the kind of things that you see. So real world, we'd need to work out that what's happened, why has that product changed? And it might be a case of the description has changed in terms of that's what's happening with this product name. It might be something else that you need to work through. And that's then where you'll need to sit down with your colleagues and work out what should we do in this situation. It isn't really possible to come up with a one-size-fits-all answer to the question. That's why I'm being a bit vague. But for us, for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over to here. Let's zoom back in. Where it says filtered rows, where we just filtered that, we're going to click on the cross to remove it. And we're going to click on the cross to remove duplicates like we did before. Okay, and then lastly, we'll just come back out and we've got our table back as it was. So what we will do now is we will just highlight product ID, right click on that and remove duplicates from it. And now, if we do the group by the same way as we did before, you can see this time, load more, everything's just one. So we've got rid of the challenge that we had before. Everything is now unique. But if we went back and looked and found that column, so if we go where this equals, paste that in again, this is the one we've ended up with. It'll just be the first one. So for the other 10, 15 or so that we had duplicates with, potentially we've lost something in that data. We would need to go through and do an in-depth analysis, look at what the prevalence was of that order, look at how those orders were structured, piece it together. You can do it if you want, okay, but for the sake of this being quick, we won't. Okay, we'll click on the cross again to remove that step. So we've got, this is here. Okay. For our customers, we're going to do the same. Okay, so we can come through. We know it's customer ID all the way through to region. So I'm going to hold down shift between there and there. That's selected that group. I'm going to right click, and again, we're going to remove other columns. So we end up just with these 7 columns that we need for customer. And then the last step to do, I'm pretty sure we can get away with doing it with all of them this time. If not, it'll tell us at a later date. But we all know what to do now if it doesn't work. So I've selected everything, and I'm going to just go right click and remove duplicates. So it's saying where we've got unique rows. Okay. Then we've got our orders table. And what we really want for our orders table, okay, is everything else. But one thing that we need to get rid of, firstly, okay, is this row ID column. Okay, indexes and ID columns in fact tables are the enemy as far as this goes. I don't want to get into it too much today, but it's something to be aware of. This we need to get rid of. So I'm going to right click and remove this column. We've now got everything else that relates to this order. So what we can do is we're going to remove some columns that we don't need. What we don't need are things like the customer information other than the ID column. Okay, so let's tell you what, let's just pick everything, Control A, pick all the columns. I'm just going to go through, I'm going to remove customer name, segment, country, city, state, postal code, region, and then we'll do the same with product category. Yeah, okay, so we've now just got the columns left that I think we need. I'm going to pick a column, just right click on it and remove other columns. And you can see that's removed an awful lot of columns. And what we're left with is largely number columns. Okay, and this is ideal for a fact table, okay? Numbers, right? So we've got here the exception being ship mode, but of course we could do something about ship mode, and we might talk about that in a bonus at some point. But we've got some things that we can join to other things, right? I've kept order ID because I think for this, order ID might be important. Okay, it'd be nice to understand what went together, which is why order ID is useful. What we have now, if we look at customer, okay, we've got this customer ID here. This is a unique list of IDs, isn't it? So there's going to be a one-to-one. It's like a unique list. Okay, there's not going to be duplicate values in here. If we look at orders and customer ID and orders, even here we can see where all these are duplicates. It's the same one duplicate many times. So we've got the concept already coming, and there's a name for these two things. In the column or in the table that the column is the source of, okay, the unique side, this is the primary key. This is the key to the relationship. Okay? It's the critical piece of information, the key, and it's referred to as the primary key. When we come through into a fact table and we have the same information, okay, this is a record of the primary key from another table. So it's a way of saying this table's primary key, in terms of that table over there is primary key. So it's not a local primary key or a local key, it's a foreign key. It's referred to as a foreign key. So best practice for fact tables, and these tables that tend to be narrower and just full of numbers, fact tables, because that's where things happened, is to not have any primary keys, but multiple foreign keys. So we can see in this row, order ID is technically is a foreign key, because we could take order ID, put that in a separate table with the order date and the ship date. Potentially those are something different. In fact, should we do it that way? Let's not. Okay, but we could. Okay, you could make that argument. That's a separate table, and then we would just have order ID, customer ID, product ID as the tables in there. Tell you what, I'm going to do it because it's otherwise I'm going to annoy myself because I'm already getting annoyed by it. So let's do that. So we're going to go back to here. So we're saying remove other columns. I'm going to pick here and I'm going to remove customer ID, product ID. Oh, it'd be different, wouldn't it? Okay, so we'll do it slightly differently. So we've removed those columns. Okay, we've left that here. Sorry, I was just thinking through it and I was thinking, oh, we should do this way. And we're going to come back and we're going to right click here again and we're going to pick to reference it again. And this time, this is going to be our sales. Okay, so this is the actual sales that have taken place. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove row ID again. Okay, so we'll remove that. We're going to keep order ID. We're going to keep customer ID. We're going to keep product ID. And then we're going to keep sales, quantity, discount, profit. Okay, I'm going to right click that and we're going to remove other columns. Okay, so we've just got 3 foreign keys, remember? And then the facts that relate to that occurrence where everything came together. That's the fact, isn't it? The fact of the sale is that this product was brought by this customer. They bought 2 of them for this amount of money and we profited that amount and it was part of this order. Okay, so that's kind of the fact of the matter, isn't it? So we've got orders here. Now I'm going to do something just because I want to show you. It's not necessarily a sensible thing to do because looking at here where we've got these, the discounts vary. But what we could do is, and this is again, for the sake of argument only, I'm showing you this, would be we could group by, we could add to the groupings. So we could bring through the ship date, we could bring through the order date so that we're getting these ones coming together. Actually, we need one more, don't we? We need the ship mode. And then we could add the aggregations for these. So we could total the sales, we could total the quantity, and we could total the profit, which makes sense actually. So let's do that. So let's go to sum, order sales amount, order quant, and order profit. Okay, so it's the sum, and in this case saying order A, but we change it to sales, sum of quantity, and sum, lastly, of profit. Okay, and this will produce quickly and easily this. Right? We wouldn't want to put in the ID. Now, there's an argument to be said for doing this, there's an argument to be said for not doing this. And this is a case of use case specific. Depending on how big your fact tables are and how big everything is, this might be useful. Depending on everything else, this might be terrible. Okay, I've shown you it so you can see, but what we've now got anyway is a list of unique IDs for our orders. And we know they're unique because if we come back to here, we do our group by again, just like we did before, group order ID, what we should see, if I've done this right, is these are all just one. Okay, so that's perfect. We'll move that grouped rows one. So we've built a table that's just going to give us a summary of everything that goes on with our orders. Now, this could be ideal for an aggregation table structure if you want to do it. Okay, if we had a lot of questions coming through to us, what were these orders? What was the orders? We've got an aggregation table layout, okay, as opposed to the number of items that there are. So we could change this. We come back in here and say, actually, let's add an aggregation rows. Okay, we're going to count the rows. So we can see some of these are significant. We've got one there with 12, for example. So you could be looking at actually what's going on. There's an analysis that could be done around here. And just by pre-staging it, that can help. We don't need it. We've got our sales, we've got our products, we've got our customers. The last thing that we do need is a calendar table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our GitHub, copy our calendar table and paste it in. So here I am in our GitHub page. What you can see is here is I have my Power Query calendar source. I'm just going to click on that and that will open up this. All I really need to do is copy this. So I'm going to go copy from all the way from let all the way down to the bottom of change type. I'm going to right click, copy, go back to Power BI desktop. On the right hand side, I'm going to right click and click a new blank query. Zoom in on that just so you can see. New blank query. That will open a box or a blank sheet, as it were. Got that. And then we need to right click on that and go to the advanced editor. And you can see we've got content there. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to scroll up just because there's a couple of things I need to check. Okay. So we've got here that we're going to use end year offset. Right. Is what this is. But the important thing, we've got here, and what we're going to use is we just need to double check to make sure that the start date is going to be fine. And I think from memory, this is from 2013. So this is starting in the year 2000. Brilliant. Perfect. This will work. I'm just going to click done, bottom, and I'm going to zoom out. And then one more thing just to do, I'm going to just rename this calendar. Okay, just so we've now got a calendar table. And this is just nice, simple calendar we bring in, and we've got everything. So we've now got dates that we can look at, use and reference. We've got the sales date, things take place in, got everything. So now we need to close and apply this because all we've actually done in Power BI sense of terminology is we've built scripts. We've built what are termed as ETL scripts: extract, transform, and load. So we've now got something that's going to take data from a source, extract it, it's going to transform it, and then load it into a model. But at the moment, all we've really shown is, well, this is what I need you to do. So until we come up to here and we click close and apply, so close and apply, we haven't done anything to bring it through into Power BI desktop, and it's all going to sit there. So now it's loading it through, and we can see all the tables coming in. It's brought my tables through. Oh, it hasn't done anything. How do I know it's brought them through? On the right-hand side, you've got the list of tables here. First thing to do is let's click on calendar. I'm going to right-click on calendar as well. And mark this as date table, so I hit the 3 dots with left click. Okay, do you want to mark this as date table? Yes, I do. Select your date column, it's dates, validates it, and save. Really important that Power BI knows you've got a date column. Okay, it just helps make everything much easier. We're going to go to our model view, which on the left-hand side is the third one down. And we need to then just make sure that all the relationships have come through correctly. So sales is here. We've got orders, which remember is what we had. We've got customers. Now customer and customer ID hasn't worked. So we're going to bring that through, drag from one to the other. We see it says, are you sure you want this relationship to be built? Okay. So it's saying it's going to be bi-directional. So there's an issue with this somewhere. And what that means is that there is not a unique field value across on one side or the other. So I'm going to say this is going to be a many to one, because we're going from sales, the many side, to one, customer side. So we've got something. So KB 16240. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to come out of here, and we can go to the data view, the second one down. It's the customers, and we can see, was it KB240? So we're seeing KB 216 240, wasn't it? 240. All right. Yeah. So it seems to be so okay. So it's because this customer has moved around, and we can see there's lots of different addresses for this customer, which potentially that's something that would be useful to know. So if do customers have multiple issue areas? This is a corporate customer, so potentially they're different locations that the business operates out of, different things. So we've got already things coming in to the data, and this is something that you see happens an awful lot when you do real world data analysis. So what I'm going to do now is on the home tab, we've got transform data. I'm going to click on that and choose to transform this data. Now, there are lots of options that we could do to try and figure out the best way for this. For the sake of it, just to keep it moving quickly, what I'll do is I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before with our products. I'm going to choose to remove duplicates there, and then just on customer ID, right click, and let's remove duplicates. So we're just removing duplicates on customer ID. This will now refresh, and this will come back, and we should just have one row for it. So we can see we've definitely lost something in our analysis with that. But again, it's important to think through at your top level what's going on, and then you work through into the detail. Okay. The realities are you will very rarely, in a one-step process, fix all the challenges that you face. So we're going to drag customer to this, customer to customer, one to many, which is what we wanted. And then what we've got to do now, I'm going to move these down here. We'll swap those over just because it makes it easier. We've got dates for the calendar, and I'm going to put that to the order date. That's the first side, one to many, and then I'm going to do a passive relationship, one more down. That's going to go into ship date. So suddenly we're actually getting useful from that. Okay. So we've built a simple 5-table model very quickly and very easily. From those 5 tables, what can we do? What was the point in doing that? So what we can now do is if we went, say, to sales, and I clicked on, say, sales, okay, so my sum of sales is 2 million. Brilliant. Just what I want to know. I'm going to format that. Here we go. Format that as currency. This is a US business. I'm going to format it as dollars. Okay, brilliant. $2.3 million sales. Awesome. But now what we can do is we can start to actually piece this together. So we could turn around and say, well, let's put it on a year. Oh, so we can see that by year. Okay, and we could also then say, well, actually, let's put the legend for that by category. So we can see each year what's happened. We could choose to then say, well, let's look at things by state. Sales state, and then we could again bring in year. Okay, so we've suddenly got state by year. Okay. And again, these are interactive. So if we pick 2016, we can see it gives us some information about that as well. We can do the same on 2016, and you'll see it shows it 2016. We could look at these things differently. So we've got here state, and instead of it being year, why don't we put on, we could put on the orders, the ship mode. Okay, so we could suddenly start to look and see, well, what happened in 2016, 2014, 2015. So we've got 2014, 2015, yeah. Okay, so we've got this view that we've actually quickly and easily pulled together into something. So what you can do very quickly within Power BI and within the Power Query environment is you can build models. And those models are built by structuring scripts in Power Query, or Power Query scripts in the language is M, if you really want to know, to build up tables that are going to contain or be structured around the primary key and the ability to then have a foreign key in a different table. That allows us to build models. And our one was fairly simple, but you can imagine they can get very complicated. You can have 100+ tables in a model, and they will all effectively link from a primary table to from a primary key to a foreign key. And then from there, you start to piece together the model. There's no real complexity to it beyond just primary key to foreign key. And thinking about, well, how would we disseminate that? Is this primary key we've got the right key, like we saw with the customer ID, like we saw with the product ID, where potentially something that we thought was unique just isn't unique? So we'd probably need to work out a way of piecing together the customer to then have an address ID as well. And it's that address ID that would tie that postcode or the postal code, state information together with the customer ID, and then validate that those two are together. And then we'd again potentially have to accept the granularity that postal area, in US terms, like the zip code, but is that too big for us that we could have customers who have multiple addresses within that zip code? But then is there enough information in the rest of the address to validate or confirm or deny that in any way, shape or form? So we can see, and we're starting to hit the challenges that you'll come up with as you progress through your Power BI developer journey. What we're going to do next week is we're going to start writing some DAX measures. So right now we've dragged and dropped some things in. we can write DAX expressions just to get that little bit more information out, and that subtlety that we also can see within the Power BI environment, just to take things to the next step. If you like what you've seen, don't forget, like and subscribe. If you think you'd like to work with us, get in touch. Our consultancy organization is here to help. They're best reached via our email, consulting@geordieconsulting.co.uk. Hello, my name's Ross, lead consultant at Geordie Consulting, and of course, unfortunately for you, the face of Geordie Intelligence. We're going through our Power BI 101 course at the moment. Welcome to week 2. If you haven't done week 1, I'd recommend you do it, talking about how you do those first bits, the extract, transform and load phase of a data model. Okay, we've now got a data model, so we need to just finish that off and tinker a little bit more with it, and we'll write our first couple of DAX statements as well. Now the dull and boring bit. Geordie Intelligence. It's a YouTube channel. YouTube channels are entirely dependent on subscriber counts, likes and comments. Okay? If you don't interact with us, the YouTube algorithm thinks that nobody cares, nobody loves us. I get very upset. I may cry. So why not do me a favor? Like, subscribe, leave a comment. So this is where we started, isn't it? We've got our data set and we've remembered, haven't we, that we can do all these fun things with the interactivity around the data set. So if we pick on 2017, we can see it cross-highlights the others. Okay, so the other chart is cross-highlighted. That interactivity is what gives Power BI the power. But what we've done so far, we haven't really written any measures. We've just dragged through, in this case, sum of sales, so the total sales, which has been great. It's done an auto calculation for us, and we can see from the way the aggregation is that we can also change that. So right at the top, if we click on that, we can see it says, do you want to change from sum to average, minimum, max, count, and so on and so forth. So we could actually do quite a lot there. One of the issues that you might find is that if you decided, well, you know what, we want to do this multiple times, is if we try to bring it in multiple times, we couldn't, which on the surface seems like quite a trivial thing. But the reality is that because we can't bring it in multiple times, we couldn't do something, for example, if we wanted to see, well, what's the minimum sale and the maximum sale in a given period? What's the average sale versus the total sales? These are things that potentially our business might want. And that's then where we have to start to write measures so that we've got distinct instances that can be brought into the chart. Okay? Additionally, we might want to do something a little bit more comprehensive or more complicated than just a simple sum or count that we get. There's not a huge amount there that you've really got. There are some very interesting things. So having things like median as well as average, so median and mean is great. Mode isn't really there, okay? Mode is always a fun one. We won't be covering mode in this course, so don't worry, okay? But we've got everything that you could want here, right? As a basic. So you can certainly do an awful lot of analysis just by dragging in numbers into it. Now they do have to be numbers. So you can see we've got these columns here with the little number sign or the total, which means they can be aggregated because they are numbers. In the event, for example, in our calendar table where we've got years, for example, we can see this has been set to text rather than a number. Okay, we do that within Power Query so that it never comes through as something as a number. So we have year set as a text largely to stop that. You can, of course, have it as a number, and what you could do, so what I'll do is I'm going to change it to a number, okay? Because you might have this situation. So I'm going to say in here, the data type. I'm going to change the data type to whole number. Okay, it's going to say, do you want to change it? Yeah, that's fine. Apologize that we're flying around the screen a bit. But then what we're going to do is, instead of saying, sorry, for here, we've got the summarization. We want to make sure we've got it set to don't summarize. Okay, by default for numbers, it'll often say summarize as something else, as sum. Okay, but you can always do that. So in the event that you've got a core field that you need to be a number and you don't want it to ever to be summarized, do that. And then if people drag it in to use it as an axis, it will be treated as a category. So if we bring in years, you see we've got years as categories here, haven't we? Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot we can see that goes on there, and there's a lot that will allow us to progress. One of the things that we probably wouldn't want, for example, might be discount. You see, this is one which would be an interesting one. You might want to do a histogram of discount, what numbers of discounts that we kind of offered. But anyway, okay. See, so many options that you can do. And remember, because they're all interactive, it makes it very space efficient, because the ability to rapidly cross-highlight or filter, depending on how you set them up, makes for some quick things. Okay, measures. Let's zoom out. The first thing I'm going to do, okay, and this is recommended, this is something I do all the time, it's definitely something that I'd recommend you do, okay? You can just create measures in any table that you've got there, okay? But if you do that, you may struggle to find them later, okay? So one of the things I recommend is going through, and at the top, you'll see we've got this Enter Data button. If we click Enter Data, it will open up a Create Table dialog for us. And I'm just going to call this DAX Measures. Okay, so we've given it a name. And then this time I'm going to click Load. So move out of the way a little bit, you see, Load. We're not going to edit the in Query Editor, we're just going to create this. We've got one column, okay, and we need to hide the column, but we can't hide it straight away. So then we're going to write our first measure. Okay, so we've got DAX Measures here. So I'm going to select the table, and then on the three dots next to it, we can click and create a new measure. And it'll bring a dialog up here. I'm just going to expand that down there. Okay, and what I'll do actually, let me just zoom in a bit on this, because we can zoom out, can't we? Okay, so we've got the measure. So how about we call this total orders, okay? That's going to equal count rows, okay? And IntelliSense is here. So count rows will count, and you can see, if this gets out of the way. Let's put the table in, the orders, won't it? Okay. So count rows counts the number of rows in a table. So IntelliSense within Power BI, it tells you the context of what it's doing. So there's a lot already built in there. So what this is going to do is give us a count of the orders table. And if you remember, the orders table is the distinct orders that we've got. So that's going to be helpful for us, isn't it? We're going to count rows of orders as our first measure. Okay? And then I'm just going to click away, and you'll see on the right-hand side it says total orders. Now what I can do is I can click on the three dots next to column 1. I'll just zoom in a bit so you can see that, okay? And watch the column, or the table, sorry, watch this whole table. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to bring this down to hide, okay? So we're going to hide that column from the model. We're not going to see it. Click hide, and you see suddenly it brings DAX measures to the top, and it puts it with a little calculator type icon, okay? So we now know in DAX mode, or in Power BI land, this is just measures that are in here. So it just helps us to classify and categorize those measures, okay? So we've got total orders. We could choose as well to do the same with, let's create a new measure, okay? This is going to be total products equals count rows products. Okay, and we can see at the top, we've got the formatting for that measure that we've just created. So it's saying it's going to be a whole number, which is exactly right. There's a count of rows. We can't have half a row. We can set the formatting there. If it was something special that we were creating, like a URL or something like that, you can do things here. These are based around what it is. So as I say again, it would know if this is a barcode, you would expect it to become a barcode when you put it into a matrix table, for example. If something else, there's things you can do with it. So click OK there. What other tables have we got? So we've got customers, so it's orders is the one we need. Customers, sorry, it's the one that's missing, isn't it? So go new measure, total customers equals count rows. That one I can spell, customers. Okay, so we've got that. Let's click away. Is it right in that? Yeah, got that. Okay. Oh, this Zoom's doing me head in. Okay, so we've got everything that we would need there. We've got our 3 core totals that we've got, and then what we need for the sales here. Okay, we're going to need our measures around sales. So let's start with profit, quantity, and sales. How do we do for those? Okay, so if we click on the 3 dots again, let's go to a new measure. Okay, and what you can do is you can do the start button and full stop to bring up this, because we might say, well, we want to bring in the total sign. Start button, full stop, you can bring those in. So total sales amount equals sum, and then that's going to be of the table sales and the column, so square bracket sales, close brackets. Okay, so we've said we're going to sum a column from a table, so sum the table name and the column, close brackets, and that just means we're going to sum that. That's all that's happening when we've dragged that measure through, is it's writing this behind the scenes, so we don't have it. But then what we could do is we could say, well, let's go and create another new measure. Average sales amount. Okay, and that's going to be the average of that column. So we've gone through, we've averaged the column. So what's the average of it? And this is where we previously couldn't do something like that, could we? So for this, it's going to be a decimal number, isn't it? So we need to decide how we want it to be. But it's going to be a currency as well, isn't it? So we know this is currency. So what we can do is we can say this is currency. It's dollars, isn't it, for this? English United States. 2 decimal places, that's fine. And I'm going to do the same for the sales amount. So we're going to say, click on there, pick English United States, sales amount of 2, okay, for our currency. But for this, what we'll do, because this is going to be a larger number, we're going to say, no, we don't care about the cents at this point, okay? So it's still calculating it, but because we're not bringing it through, we're just not showing it. So formatting it rather than it's not, the number still exists in the model, or would still exist with all decimal points. For it's not being stored, it's in DAX, it's just calculated. But yeah, okay. So now, for example, what we could do is we could say, well, we've got this, we could bring in our total sales amount into our measure that we've just written here, and we could bring in the average sales amount as well. And we could see, oh, okay, these are 2 things. So we could put the average on the secondary sales axis, and we could see how the 2 interplay. So we've quickly and easily been able to build a measure set, and if we were to pick California, we'd be able to see that would filter it based on California, New York, Texas. So we can start to actually gauge and see what's happening at any given point in time. We could look at anything and have it all updating effectively that way. So we've done some simple measures, haven't we? Okay. Now, one of the things that often happens is that you're going to move beyond simple. Okay, what do I mean by that? So let's create a new page, and let's keep this pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag year from my calendar into filters on this page, and I'm going to pick is 2016. Okay, I'm going to apply that filter. We're going to bring in month name. Okay, and you're going to see, oh, it's alphabetical. Okay, now this is something, again, it's part of the modeling cycle that we bring through and what we need to do with this. And the issue is, of course, it's sorted it by the alphabet. What we've got is we've got options around here. We've got month. So what we can do is we can highlight month name, and then on the top where it says column tools, you can see underneath there we've got sort by column. So I'm going to pick to sort this by month. Okay, and you'll see January, February, March. So month is the numeric that we've got for the month. So it goes 1 to 12, whereas the name is, of course, alphabetical, which is silly. But yeah, you can sort that, you can go through and do that. Likewise, you do the same for days, and it makes life much easier. Okay, so you'd have days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you'd want those to sort correctly. Okay, so the question would be, wouldn't it? I want to know how much was sold and how much was shipped. Okay, that's kind of the thing. So if I came through and said, right, create me a measure to show me the total shipped, or total sold, sorry, right, in terms of the number of items, okay, because that might be something we want to know. We want to know what's the number of items sold. Let me expand that down so we can see what I'm typing. Oh, it's going to be infuriating today, isn't it? There we go. Right. Let's bring that in again. Let's put in our little math symbol. Oh my goodness me. I'm not going to do that again. Total quantity sold equals sum of sales quantity. Okay, so we're quantity that we've sold, right? And we know that's sold, don't we? Based on, that's what we've put in the relationship view. If you remember the relationship from last week, we've got two lines. So the order date and the ship date, one's active, so it's the ordered, so the sold has been ordered, versus the shipped. We'd want to know how many were shipped in that period as well, wouldn't we? So let's go back through to here. And how would we do that? So we can bring in this chart. I'm going to bring it back to being a table as well. So we're leaving it as a table. Yep, good. Okay, it's total quantity sold. And then we're going to create a new measure. Okay, and this one's going to be a little bit more complicated, because what we need to do is we need to, in the terms of Power BI, is we need to change the context. So we need it to use that dotted line relationship, that passive relationship. Okay, so this is going to be total quantity shipped. Okay, and that's going to equal, and this time, because we have to change the context, I'm going to go to a new line, so shift enter, I'm going to calculate. So this here, so this evaluates an expression in a context modified by filters. So what we can do is we can say, well, calculate. Now I could use the other one, but I'll type it out again. So a new line, sum, open brackets, sales up, quantity. Okay. So I could have used the total ordership, but let's do it this way, and then we'll bring that back in and we can talk about why that works and what's going on. Okay. We need to filter it. So the filter that we're going to apply is we need it to use the dotted line, don't we? We need to use a different relationship. So that's going to be use relationship. And it's going to be calendar date, comma, it's not, it's orders, isn't it? Orders, orders, there's order date, okay? Close brackets, which is interesting. I just thought about that. This might not be working. This might not work the way we expect it to do. It'd be interesting to find out, won't it? Okay. Shift enter, and then we're going to close brackets to complete that. Okay. It's going to be a whole number again. Everything's as it should be. If we click away, let's get rid of that. And now let's bring total orders shipped into our table. Okay. What an idiot I am, eh? I just realised I spent like 5 minutes going, what's going on? Why is this not working? It helps if I remember. Ordered and ship dates, doesn't it? Okay. Ship date, I wrote order date before. Ship date is the important thing. We can see we're now using what was shipped that month versus what was sold that month. There's a number, okay? And that's a really important thing to be able to understand, because what we do within analytics, and as it becomes bigger, it's about actually starting to look at it from different people's context, right? So my sales team will be really aware and focused on sales. So what was sold, what was sold, what was sold, what was sold, okay? I'm going to have an inventory management team and a warehousing team who are interested in, we need to order new stock in, we need to get stock pushed out, who are going to be more interested in how much is shipped, because potentially that's got an impact on where are we, what's going on. So there's a different context there. And then lastly, we're also going to have potentially, we'd have our customer satisfaction teams who'd be looking at, well, when was it delivered, if we had a delivered date for there. And then money received, like kind of like payments received date. Potentially not for something like this, might be an online ordering where payment will be received before the things are shipped. But if you think for an organization, there could be multiple dates throughout it. And being able to use calculate to redefine the context of the measure makes it very possible for that whole gambit of business use cases to be serviced by one single semantic model, which is hugely powerful. So what we've got now is we've got this, haven't we? And we can see our number of measures is kind of growing. And we think, well, this is getting a bit awkward, isn't it? We probably want to do something about this. And there's a few things that we should probably do. So I've just minimized those. Let's zoom in back in here, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is let's hide the sales table, okay? So we're going to left click on it. It's all behind my head at the moment. So I'm going to bring it down a bit here. And what we've got is hide, okay? Hide. Now, this is something that is definitely best practice. If you've got a proper data model, you should be able to hide the fact tables, because there's nothing in them that's of interest. There's nothing descriptive. There is only the source for aggregations. And if we're going to have measures for it, why would we need those? The last thing that we're going to do, and this is something which is relatively new, sort of not new, but it is, and not many people are doing it, but it's worth knowing how to do it, is we're going to come to our model view again, okay, and where we've got the measures here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on total products to total customers, okay, these are just like the rows, aren't they, the count row measures. And what you can see here is we've got home table. Let me zoom in a bit on this, okay, so we've got the home table, a description of them, got this, but at the bottom we've got this display folders. So we're going to go I'm going to call this count rows, okay? Just keeps it simple, doesn't it? And you can see it puts a new measure, a new table in there, or a new folder, and hides them away. So we've got that. Just helps to make it a little bit more efficient, doesn't it? Sales amount, so we can put this in here, okay? And of course, Microsoft tells us we've got Copilot, doesn't work. Okay, when you're not signed in, it doesn't work. Okay, and I said we would do all this without signing in. What we can do is we can write this as the sum of the sales column move the mouse out of the way, to give us a total sales amount in USD. Okay, let me just correct that. Okay, so we've got that, and then I'm going to put this in display folder, sales amount. Okay, we've got the average sales amount. Again, we can write a measure for this. Mean sales amount. And this time what I can do is I can drag this and put this into the sales amount column. Or table, sorry. Yeah, folder. Folder, that's the one. Column, table, folder. And you can keep going on and you can do that for everything. So we can do that. So let's go put these two. I'm just going to highlight these two. Oh, put these in the display folder. Let's go quantity sold. Okay, you can also nest within these if you really want to. You can. So you have to put the slash in there. So we could do, for example, ship date, order date as the main classification, and then have sales or quantities. Or there's lots of things you can do. You can get very complicated with it though very quickly. Okay, but for now, what we've done is we've created a nice, simple way of looking at those. So if we come back through to our main measure or our main window, we can see it's moved them, hasn't affected any of the visuals that use them, so that's great. And also what we can see if we look at the sales amount ones where we've written in here, if we now expand this DAX, you'll see there is nothing being added to the measure, which is important. Okay, that description is in a different part of the DAX model for it. We'd probably be able to see it actually in the TMDL view. Should we have a look at that actually? This is new. This is something that came out just a couple of weeks ago. So I haven't enabled it in here, but we will talk about how to enable preview features for you to have a look at. I'll have to close this and reopen it, but we can do that. So to bring in preview features, we go to File, go to Options and Settings, and we go to Options. And a window will appear, and then in here, like we've had before, we can see we've got preview features. I'm going to click that. One of the ones lots of people should be putting on, and I'll just zoom in on this, okay, is shape map. It's one, we'll get lots of people asking about that, shape map. The rest, it's up to you which ones you want. I would say tick the OneDrive and SharePoint if you're signed in, of course. If you're not signed in, can't use them. Okay, got a few other things that we can go through here. But right down here, we've got TMDL view. So brand new TMDL view. So we're going to click OK. And it tells us we need to restart for it. Okay, so I will zoom out of here. I'm going to close this, save what we've done. Okay, so whenever opening it, you see it comes through, it says, oh, you need to log in. No, I don't want to log in. Not giving you my credentials. Okay, and I'm still able to use it, so it's important to remember that. So let's see, this new TMDL view. I'm going to click to try it now. Okay. Okay, so let's create a new script. Script 2, let's see, can we bring in, which one was it? It was salesman, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So did you see? So we can update this, create a replace, but we can see we've got a column in here, or sorry, a comment in here, 3 slashes. Okay, so we can go through, this is one of the things which is brand new, you can start to do things in here. And we could look and see what can we use with this. So one of the things that people are going to start to do is to start to copy out these scripts and save them in something like GitHub. And we will be doing that as we do more advanced things, and we'll put them up on our GitHub so you guys can access them. But it's nice to be able to see this is actually where that description goes and how it all pieces together. That this is, in essence, this whole thing here is that DAX measure that we've written. Okay, so we can see it's quite simple, the sum. We can see we've got the format string for it, the display folder, got a GUID, so globally unique identifier, that tells it actually what it is. Okay, and then we've got some other things as well in terms of the format for it. Okay, but back in our model, which is all we really care about, we've got that. So what we need to do now is think, well, we could do with actually having a sales amount, couldn't we, by shipped, couldn't we? So we're going to create a new measure. Total sales amount shipped equals, oh, it's zoomed out again, hasn't it? Zoomed in. This is going to be calculate sum of sales, comma, can you remember what it was? We need to use a different relationship, don't we? So we're going to say use relationship, calendar date with orders ship date. Okay, and another thing, close brackets. But you'll see what this does, if we zoom in here, is it creates it outside the folder. And when you're in this view, you can't drag and move it around. Okay, it's really good you can't. You used to be able to do drag and drop and things, and it used to cause all sorts of problems. They've moved it now. They used to be able to create hierarchies from here, just drag things around, and yeah, chaos ensued quite easily. You can still do it under the modeling view, so we'll go into the modeling view for this, which is of course where we would need to go. Okay, so come through here. We're going to go to our model view. That's what we said, wasn't it? Total amount shipped, and of course we can now bring this into our total. Okay. We can see we've got some synonyms for it, all those kind of things. We need to tell that this is going to be currency. 1,000 separators are useful. And then we want general currency. No, it is going to be USD. No decimal places, just so that we're the same as the other one, as it was before. Okay. And it's everywhere we need it to be. So what we can now do is come back through to our DAX view. Let's zoom out of here a bit, and let's bring in the two sales pieces. So firstly, let's bring in sales amount, and on the right hand side, I'm just going to put that in this side, and then we've got the total amount shipped. Okay, and you should hopefully see that our totals are different. We've got everything going on, and we can see now. So we could actually start to look and see what's happening with this. We could actually look and see, well, what's the difference? Because that's kind of one of the questions that we'd have, isn't it? So difference calculations can now be done very simply within here. So if we click on the three dots of the visual, we've got the new visual calculations, and we can see some information in terms of what's going on. So we could have a running sum. So we could put in a running sum, for example. So we want a running sum of, pick the field. So let's go for total sales amount. Okay. Now this used to be a bit of a pain to have to do these things. So RS sales, running sum sales. Okay. Probably not the neatest, but we can see. We've got running sum sales. So we could create a new one. So this is going to be RS shipped equals running sum of total sales amount shipped. Okay. So we can see how that goes through. We could then look and see, well, let's look at difference, which equals, let's go sales amount minus total sales amount. Okay, so we can see actually what's the variance, how much hasn't been shipped yet, so what's missing. There'd be ways of calculating or things that you would want to see for this, probably more at an orders level. But the point of this is we've just shown very quickly, very easily, these visual calculations can be added in. The issue that you have with visual calculations, and it is a big issue, is they only exist in the context of that visual. Okay, they do not exist outside the visual. Okay, so we couldn't then go and use these elsewhere. So if we come back to the report, we can see this could be brilliant for showing my team, where are we with these things? We could have our core things that we want to look at. We could have, for example, there's a question, well, why is this 10,000 more? Is it 10,000 more? That's an interesting one. Why is that? There's definitely something odd going on with that. How have we shipped more than we've sold? Anyway, we can work through this. There's definitely some questions I think that would need to be worked through. But effectively what we're saying is that there's always kind of a variance of, say, $2,000 is what we'd expect, between 2,000 and, say, 10,000, plus or minus, which is 20,000 variance in terms of where we can be between we've got orders and they've shipped, that there's potentially 10,000 in stock, or number of items. We could do that with items, for example, might be a better one to do it with. And you could then look, because we've got the interactivity of it, of course, haven't we? So we could we could go to products, and we could say, well, let's do a slicer for this. So let's put in, I'll tell you what, let's make a hierarchy. So this is easier, shall we? So we're going to bring in category first, and let's create a new hierarchy, create a hierarchy, category hierarchy, then we're going to add that to the hierarchy. So 3 dots, add to hierarchy, and then lastly, let's add this to the hierarchy. Okay, so we've got this hierarchy that we've suddenly got here. If we zoom in, see it goes category, subcategory, product name, which makes sense for a hierarchy. Just to make it even easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on the 3 dots. I'm going to hide category. Left click on the 3 dots and I'm going to hide product name, and left click on 3 dots, I'm going to hide subcategory. I would probably hide product ID as well, because we might not really want to see that in a report. So I'm going to hide that as well. So what we've really got now is, if we double click, I can rewrite and change the name of this. Let's call it product information. Okay. And now what we can do is, we've got nothing selected on the page. If we select product information and we zoom back out, we've got that in here. So let's change this to be a slicer. Okay. And now what we can do is, where we've got this here, let's move this way. Right? Is I could say, well, I'm interested in technology, and we can see technology is now updated. Office supplies, what's going on with the office supplies, furniture. And we could do the same across any of our other areas. So we've built a hierarchy now to make it easier for us to assess things. So how's it going? What we've got now is, we've actually started to write some DAX statements, haven't we? And we've managed to write our first calculate statement, so that we can look at the difference between the orders that have been placed and the orders that have shipped. And understanding that variance would be something it's very industry specific. You could look at like a manufacturing site where you really don't want to have huge amounts of stock in play, and use that quantity count as opposed to the value count to look at, well, how much stock are we potentially, or should we look to hold to minimize that? And you could do, there's analysis that you could do around certain product lines. See, well, there's a lot going on. We could use a difference calculation to calculate the difference between the ship date and the order date. So actually, how long did it take to ship? And compare that against ship methods, of course, because were these on time? Did these ship late? There's a lot that can be done. Okay? But stop. Okay? Remember, all this came from a CSV file. So that one simple CSV file is suddenly able to start to serve up a whole lot more information than potentially we even realized we could get from it. And this is one of those really big learning things that you need to kind of go, oh, I get it now, within Power BI and within big data analysis. As you're going through and analyzing stuff, you're uncovering more and more information about a data set. If you think, when I looked at this, when we looked at putting this out and shared it, there was actually, oh, here's the 2019 version. So we could expand this and see, well, we've got another couple of years of data in it. And suddenly we'd be getting more information out. What we're going to do next week, though, is we're going to look, because one of the things I did was around the customers, and we knew it wasn't the right thing to do. And as well, I think we need to tweak the orders. So we're going to change the data model. And I think this is something that's important to see, because as you progress with the data model, it becomes necessary that it goes through changes. And those changes can require updates to the DAX measures. It's important to understand that, and we'll go through and we'll do that. What we're also going to do next week is we will put together, I will sign into it and I will publish this report to my workspace, okay? Okay. Or actually, I'll set up a workspace for us, but I'll publish it to the Power BI service, because there's something else that you need to see about Power BI and really where it comes and where the kind of the step change is within Power BI as opposed to some of the other platforms. But I think it's really important that you see that first. And then, as I say, week 4, what we're going to do is we're going to prepare, and the aim is to do like a live build. So we'll do a live session. Of course, it's free. We'll build a data set from scratch, different to the one we've done, but we'll go through and do similar things and see what you'll think of it. Before all that, though, of course, if you guys feel that you want professional services support from our main organization, from our consultancy business, why not reach out to us? Email is consulting@geordieconsulting.co.uk. We look forward to hearing from you. So how we're getting on? Yeah? In the last couple of weeks, we've gone through, haven't we? We've kind of started with some simple data, and we've brought it in, and we've explored really the ETL processing, the extract, transform, and load that goes on within Power Query. We then brought our data through into the main Power BI desktop visualization area, put some relationships in, done some simple measures with drag and drop, written some measures, including a calculate using the clause or the filter statement or the context adjuster of use relationships. Big things to be going through. We've used visual calculations, and let's not forget, we also managed to put in a hierarchy. So we're already actually going really far along here. But there's a few things that we should really go back and revisit. And we've done it this way because you need to think, right, or be aware that there isn't really a problem with saying, right, I've got this plan, we're going to go through and do this. This is going to be what we do. And then changing your mind and doing something different. So in our case, there's a couple of things that we've gone through. There's a couple of bits that I looked at and thought, well, okay, we'll do. And then I've looked at them, and as I was looking through them and doing some stuff, and after we had an issue on week 2, it was like, no, this is definitely the wrong thing. I think I've missed something. I've mixed it up or caused a problem. But it'll also give us a chance to have a look at something that'll be interesting to see. So that we'll do that. That's one of the things. And the other thing is, of course, customer. So we tweaked the customer. So I thought, let's go and have a look at fixing customer as well. Before we do all that though, let's have the boring bit. Geordie Intelligence is of course a YouTube channel. That means it's entirely dependent on your interactions with it. How many of you like the videos? How many of you subscribe to the channel? Do you add comments to say how much you like things or what you don't like as well? Both are just as important. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. Let people, I'll answer them, or maybe even somebody else watching, another person who's watched will answer it. Best thing to do though is ask questions. When we stop asking questions, we stop learning. So here we are, back in Power BI Desktop. Okay, we've got our matrix visual that we built last week with the additional measures that we wrote, the visual calculations. You see on the right-hand side, if we zoom in, I have to move my head a bit. We've got the visual calculations. On the left-hand side, we've got the result of our hierarchy, of course, haven't we? So we can actually drill in. So we look at furniture. We can actually, I'm only interested in bookcases. So I'm only interested in the Atlantic Metals mobile bookcase, for example. So we can really see there's a lot we can do with these. And it's all, of course, interactive. And that interactivity is the power that is Power BI. Okay, so we're going to fix customer and we're going to fix orders as well. Okay, so there's two things to fix: orders and sales. We'll fix both of them because I think some of the stuff from the orders needs to go into the sales, right? I think some of the stuff that's in our customers, we need to just tweak that, change how we've done stuff. So I thought we'll really enjoy this. This is going to be a fun one, I think. So let's start by fixing the orders. So the way we're going to do this is we go back into the query editor. And the way we get back into the query editor, once we're in here and we've done some work with it, you think, well, how do I get back? So on the Home tab, top, you got Transform Data. We're going to click on that. And we can click, if we click the drop down, we've got the Transform Data, or we can just click Transform Data. And it'll open up the Power Query window with all the queries that we've got in already. Okay. Now, one of the things that went through as I was doing various things when I accidentally picked the wrong date in the use relationships option, which just caused me to, my head went mad and I went around, did all sorts of things trying to think of it, was we've got orders. And at the moment, what we've done is we've got a couple of things in orders that I think we shouldn't have in orders. Okay. So what I was thinking is probably ship mode potentially doesn't belong in orders because that potentially is something that we haven't done any analysis on to see, well, is ship mode unique? Two things. So potentially we should be taking ship mode and actually putting that and leaving that in sales, or, well, leaving it in sales because it's an attribute on its own. So in essence, we're going to treat it, okay, in inverted commas, treat it as a foreign key, okay, so it'll still be there. And even though it's going to be within sales, but remember we hid sales. So what can we do to manage that and to mitigate that? So we can, as I say, make it a foreign key. So we can actually take standard class or any of these, and actually we should be able to do something to make a foreign key and then have a primary key table elsewhere. Okay, so we have like a way for it to link. Yeah, even at the most simple level, we could just extract the unique values, pair them back and link it in. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Okay, because that's simple. Order date, I was thinking, sorry, not order date, ship date, I was thinking, potentially, we've got no way of knowing that every item that's in an order is being shipped at the same time, which is why I'm saying we'll potentially do it. But also potentially some items might be shipped a different way based on what they are compared to the rest of the items in the order. So I thought, we've made an assumption about our data, which happens. And when you're doing, certainly even the first stages of a data model, you need to take a lot of assumptions because it's better to have something and then say, well, this bit doesn't work, that bit doesn't quite work. And we work to fix that than saying, well, we can't do anything until we've worked everything out. Okay, because if you don't do anything until you've worked everything out, you never do anything. We start and then we tweak the bits that need work. Okay, that's continual improvement. That's really how Power BI works and where the power, again, of Power BI comes in. It's that ability for us to go back in, tweak this, do stuff. All right, so we've got the ship date here. So we're going to take the ship date out. We're going to take ship mode out as well. Okay, I'm going to leave these, even though I don't think we necessarily need them. Okay, we're just going to leave them. I don't think they're really causing us any real cost in terms of the size of the model, but of course, they're not adding anything to what we're doing, and we so far aren't using them, but in theory, we might do. But for now, I'm going to just leave them, but we will look to remove these things. So I'm going to zoom back out again. Okay, and what we've got here is we've got these applied steps. So if you remember, what we really want to get rid of is this grouped rows, okay, which is where we did that like a group by clause. So we said, well, let's keep these and then aggregate the rest, which is again why I'm saying potentially we're going to lose the others anyway. Gosh, yeah, why was I saying we're going to keep them? We can't keep them coming. We're just going to lose them. So, or should we go back? Should we go back? Let's get them. Okay. One of the things you'll notice, you can't Control Z, undo stuff in here. What you have to do if you've done something silly like this is go through to File and Close, come back out, and then we'll scroll right over and we're going to say discard the changes. Okay, so that's rolled back any changes that were made to the model. Okay, and it's presumed there's a box there, yep, saying discard the changes. Right, so again, remember Power Query, the query editor side, we'll go back in transform data, is building a script. It's not doing anything until you hit refresh. So the script is there, you're working on it in parallel to it. Until you close and apply, it's not going to actually write anything back into the model. So we'll go through and we'll do this again. So we'll go into our orders, wasn't it? I'm going to click on here, the little cog. We're going to get rid of ship mode. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete ship date. Let's just zoom in so you can see. So we're clicking on the three dots. I'm going to click delete. We're going to keep those ones. And I'm going to click OK. Zoom out again. And then where we've got this removed other columns, remember we always do remove other columns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the cog next to it. That'll open up a table here where I can pick what I don't want. So I'm going to remove ship date and ship mode. Yeah, so we've got our resultant table at the end. If we go right down to the last step, is here. And we've got our order date and the order, and then we've got the information about the order. So the order sales amount, the order quantity, so how many things were ordered, the item quantity. What do we call that? Order item count, shouldn't we? But yeah, we've got the order profit and we've got the number of rows. So, which is distinct products, would probably be the right way of putting that. Okay, so we've kind of got that table sorted out now. For the sales table, this is our fact table, remember, okay? So as I say, one of the things I did when I was going through and trying to tinker with this, we worked out what's going on, trying to work my head out. I don't understand. I ended up keeping a few things. One of the things we kept was around, I put in order date and ship date because I tried these with different dates. And that's where I thought, well, hang on, let's do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep order ID because we need that joins us back into that order table. We're going to get rid of order date though. Okay, remember we're going to keep ship mode and we're going to do some funky stuff with that. And then the rest of it is as it is. So right over on the right hand side, we're going to remove other columns. I'm going to click back on here. And what we're going to do is get back rid of order date. Okay, the rest we can keep. Excellent. So we've got that. That makes sense. Okay. Now, one of the things we need to do is we're just going to go back to our sample superstore, and because we need to create our ship mode table, don't we? So we're going to go right click on that, new reference. Yeah. So from reference, and this is going to be shipping mode. And then what we'll do here is all we really want to keep is shipping mode. So I'm going to select shipping mode, right click on it, remember, and remove other columns. So we're just keeping this one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it again, and we're going to remove duplicates. So we've got four options here. Okay, so we've got same day, first class, second class, standard class. What we could do is we could write a column. So if we went through and we said, right, we're going to go in, we're going to add a column. It's going to be a conditional column. Okay. and this is mode order. Okay, so if ship mode equals first class, that's going to be 1. Oh, second class, move that, all right. That's going to be 2. Ship mode equals standard class. It's going to be 3. Oh, I've just seen we've got same day, isn't it? Same day. We want that to be at the top, don't we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that as 0. Okay. Otherwise, blank. Let's see what we get. So we get this. We've got a mode order here, which is what we want. We're going to make that whole number, so we can then choose to sort by that. So if we went and we said, let's sort that ascending, see, we get same day, first class. So in our slicer list, we can sort by that, and it'll then appear that way. Make left, much better, won't it? Okay. So we've got a shipping mode table. Okay. Now, customers. So the challenge that we've got with customers is we need to split, don't we, customers and address information. So what we're actually going to need to do is to keep these 3 columns together and then come up with a way of dealing with the addresses as well. And that's kind of where it's going to get difficult, I think, is probably the easiest way to put that. So what we can do with this is we can say, if we scroll right over to the right first, where we've got remove duplicates, we're going to remove the remove duplicates piece. Okay, so we've now got the distinct full list, haven't we, of everybody who's of all our customers, all our addresses. And the issue we've got is that we've got some customers have many addresses. So we can't necessarily just go and say, well, we're going to just pick that. I suspect there's going to be a difference around the segment. So whether, it might be that home office, we've got a tendency that they've just got 1, whereas corporate are the ones that potentially have multiple. Until we actually do a level of analysis on that, we just won't know. So the simplest way we can do this is to say, right, we're going to create 2 tables effectively for this. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to separate the 2 into 2 different tables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just right click here and I'm going to duplicate this table. Okay, and I'll put the 2 next to each other. So one's customers, this one's going to be addresses. Okay, and I've duplicated them just because the only step that's left in them, if you remember, is remove other columns. So the first one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave everything in it. Okay, we're not going to change anything. The second one, the addresses, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to remove customer name, so customer ID, segment, customer name, customer ID, and segment. Okay, which should leave us country, city, state, postcode, region. Click OK. So what we've got now is we've got this information. So hopefully this information, we can deduplicate this information and we can then index it to have an address ID. So what does that mean? So what we'll do is we'll do Control A again to select everything. And we'll then, in the home, we're going to remove rows, remove duplicates. Okay, so we've removed duplicates from there. So we've now kept, these are the ones that we've kept. Okay. And now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a column, add an index column. Okay. It's going to start at 0. So I'm going to tell it, I want it to start at 1. And we're going to give it a name. This is going to be address. Oh, if I type properly, address ID. Okay. So we've now got a unique identifier for an address. So what we can do now is we can come back to here and we can say we're going to, on the Home tab, we are going to merge queries. So we're going to merge queries. Let's bring this in. This is where we effectively, if you're from an Excel background, it's like doing a VLOOKUP, okay? And it is just as bad as a VLOOKUP. So avoid them, they are not great, but we can do these across multiple columns. So we're going to pick country, I'm going to hold down Control, country, city, state, postcode, region. See 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is written there. I'm going to do the same here. So country, city, state, postcode, region. It's going to go through, it says, oh, I've matched all 9,994 rows. Brilliant. So we've got a match. Okay. Power Query is case sensitive, okay, which is the thing you need to remember and learn. So if you do this against all sorts of other data, potentially it's going to be problematic. If you've got case information, cases different within the columns of data here for your addresses, potentially you would have problems with it. In real world, if you're going to do it, I would say potentially create a separate set of columns, like duplicate set of columns at lowercase, or even just create a lowercase text string of everything to then use that for your join, just to make sure everything's lowercase and cases are being ruled out, especially when you're doing your deduplication. But, you know, we could spend so much time going through all this and doing it. So we've got that. What we can now do in our customers table, and this is again one of the beautiful things about it being, or really, I think hopefully lands the view that this isn't real, that this is like, we're scripting how to do something. We can bring in the address ID. So we've got this address ID. We can then go and select the 5 columns that we needed. So I held down the Shift key, click from one to the other, right click on them and remove those columns. So we've got through to this point, haven't we? We've got this table structure here for our customers where we've got 4 columns. Now, what have we got here? We've got multiple customer IDs linking to one, links to one address. So there's a one address to multiple customer IDs, but potentially as well, what we can see is that we've got customer IDs going to multiple addresses. So you end up with a many to many. So what this means is we have to do something different, but very common, okay? Because we said we couldn't have a many to many relationship. So what do we need to do? What we need to do is we say, right, this, I'm going to mark this as a temp table in my nomenclature. So I'm just going to put a T here. Okay, and I'm going to right click here and disable load for it. It's going to say potentially data loss, it's fine. Okay, because what we want to do is I'm going to reference this twice. So we've got reference 1, reference 2. So customer address link. Okay, this is going to be a link table. So all we're going to have is customer ID. I'm going to delete that and segment. That's all we want. Okay, and customer is going to be our customer table. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove address ID, and then we're going to remove duplicates from here. Okay. So we will select all the rows, remove duplicates. Okay. And oh, I've just thought we didn't remove duplicates from here as well, did we? Which we should do. So we're going to select these 2, remove rows, remove duplicates. Okay. So we've now got a distinct list of everything that we need. Okay. So we've had to add a few tables to get this all to work. We've built another temporary table. If you remember, we had a temporary table before. Okay. Well, that was just kind of like a base table. I should really call that base, shouldn't I? Base query. Okay, I often use those. Okay, base query, which is where we're pulling the initial thing through. And we've got the customer where we've started to build that link table, and then it either goes to the customer side or it goes into the link side. if you're not sure, what you can do is you can say view the query dependencies. This view is never the best, but it will show you kind of what's happening, especially as you look at more complicated models. But it allows you to really see the path, that you've gone on in your development. So we can see where we started, see things have gone through, we see that the measures table and the calendar table are separate, but we can see that whole table journey and history that things have gone through to get to where they are. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, zoom back out, I'm going to go back under home, I'm going to close and apply, and it's going to think through what's needed and build my model. Everything comes through, we've got a join, we've got the joins, everything is joined. Now, one thing that we've got to do, let's just double check, make sure that's joined on the correct thing. Yep, ship mode to ship mode. Yep. I'm going to click on here. Ship mode from mode order. I'm going to hide, and I'm just going to click on there, and I'm going to say sort that. My mind has gone blank. Sorry, and advanced. Sort by mode order. Okay. So we've got that. What we have here is this link table, and you can see it's many to many. So what we need to do is we need to do something a little bit special about it, because the relationship that we want is for it to go this way and that way. So this one has to be both directions, and this one has to be both directions. Now, putting in bi-directional relationships makes your models work really easily if you're not sure what you're doing. But they can cause an awful lot of problems because they introduce complexity that potentially isn't needed, and that you need to be aware of, would be what I would say most importantly. So a couple of things we're going to do here, but I'm just moving these around just so we can kind of see this a bit better. So what I'm going to do though, because I know these ones, I need the relationship to traverse this link table, okay? So I'll hide the link table because I don't really want the link table to be seen. I'm just going to hide it. And what we can do is we can say this relationship, where it's saying cross-filter direction, I'm going to say that's both, and you'll see it'll change the icon. When I click apply changes, sorry, yeah. So if we zoom in, it changes the icon. For this one, I'll click it again, come over here. This is going to be both. We're going to apply cross-filter direction to both, okay? So we can now see that it'll go both ways. So customers can filter addresses, so we'd only see the addresses that relate to the customer, and likewise, it can go the other way. So we could use the addresses to filter customers, because that would be really what we'd want to do. In terms of the practical reasons for these, link tables are they're often used for things, but also in practice, a link table is a facts table. It just doesn't have any facts. Okay, there's no numerical information related to it. Okay, we could put some in and have another fact table, yay, but for the sake of this, we don't really need it. But we do know we need the relationships to be able to go this way, because we're not really interested in what's in there. You could put stuff in there, and then you'd be able to use your context to make it better. If we got to a properly complex model, we might need to do this. But for now, we know where that is. If we were seeing issues with the data or with the values that came back, we'd know where to start. Okay. What I want to do as well, you can see this is starting to look a bit cluttered, isn't it? There we are, okay. So what I say, or what we always recommend, is you always have this all tables view, okay? Zoom in at the bottom, so you can see, you're going to struggle, right? I'd always say add one, okay? This is going to be products, okay? And I'm going to put in, okay, you're not limited to how many you have. Customers, okay? What you can do is you can drag tables through. So if I bring in, for example, that's customers, if I go back to products, if I bring in products, And then the sales table, you'll see the join is there, okay, which is great. So I can do this. You can build up sections of your model. So where we've got complicated sections now, which is like the customer, if we bring in the customer address link as a starting point, I can right click on it and say add the related tables. And it just puts in these two here. Okay, so I'm going to put those there to there. Okay, and then just for this, I'm also then going to bring in sales. So we've got a clear set of information as to how these tables link together. And you can choose to put them vertically, do this. I've seen so many people saying you go top to bottom, you go left to right, you go right to left, you put the star schema, so you have the fact in the middle and everything else around the outside. Honestly, whatever works for you works, be all I will say. Corporately, even corporately, we've said, well, we should try and come up with a standard to say we're going to go this way, that way. I've yet to find one that properly works beyond saying build lots and lots, potentially not lots and lots. You don't want to have hundreds of these, but 5 or 6 different things to show different portions of your measure or of your data model in a simple, structured way removes a lot of the challenges that you face. Obviously, good documentation as well is really important, but this is how we're going to go through and do it. So we've got everything in there, and I think we can all agree that looks a lot better than that. The last thing we need to do, I'm going to put calendar in here. Okay, because what we've got now, this is really, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it this way, and why we did it this way, you're seeing now, is we've got links between order ID and sales. But now if I bring in calendar, we've got the dates to order date. But what we've done now is we put ship date here. So if we bring ship date to there, say, yeah, that's fine. Oh, it has to be passive. Okay, now it has to be passive because there's a circular relationship being created there. So what we could do at this point is we could say, well, we're going to make this a passive relationship. Okay, we could do so that you would have to put in some sort of a classification for any relationship model that you're going to build. The use relationship clause will still work. If we say we'll use this one, it'll force that to be passive, but we're going to have to tweak the measures that we've already written that have got them. Yeah. So it's interesting to see what happens. We can do that and we'll see how those all work. So we click OK. This tells you, oh, I don't like it. Okay, because total quantity and total sales do not work. If we expand down, but it's good, isn't it? It's made it quite clear. These ones aren't working. Fixie, pleasey, pleasey. So if we come up and we say under quantity sold, we can see the one that's broken. See, it's to order ship date. This is to sales ship date. And then it says it works. And then we'll do the same for sales amount. Instead of order, we'll say sales ship date, and they work. Those values look the same to me. Okay. We could double check. We could go back to our previous version. Bear in mind, this is week 3 version. So we could go back to the week 2 version and make sure do these two work. Again, if you're doing these kind of things, do things like that. Make sure you're always checking, you comparing how updates are going through. Are we getting the responses that we expected to get? But what we can suddenly see is we've got this view that allows us to do things. We could also put in something like this. So we could put in ship mode, total quantity by ship mode. And then we could put on the legend for that. We could expand the products. We could expand the element of the subcategory and say, well, actually, we're just interested in the category, just to see what happens with each one. Okay. So building a hierarchy isn't going to force you to use the whole hierarchy. You can put in bits of the hierarchy to really gauge what's happening. And we can see, for example, the furniture, some furniture has gone same day. What furniture would that be? We can click on that and we can see. What we also can do, so we touched a bit, didn't we, on the classification of data. So Something people like to see a lot of in these things is maps. So now we've got addresses clearly there. Got the address ID. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the address ID. Okay, there's nothing to see here. Okay, we can say city. I'm going to click on city. And on the top up here, see we've got data classification or data categories. I'm going to click on there. City is city. Come back through here and you can see it becomes a little globe icon. Might not be up there. You got a little globe icon now. It's not behind my head. Country, we can do the same. So we can pick country, classification. That's going to be country, not county. It says that. Postal code, do postal code. Okay, and then we've got region. I think region is something that doesn't make sense. Region is an internal thing within the business, and then state here is state. So that would be state or province. Okay. So we've got those done now. Okay, and that's left us with like a really nice table where we can say, well, if I pick state, for example, it builds a map for me. It now knows state as state. I can bring in city within state, okay, as a sub-tier of state. So we can then say, well, what's the total quantity? Yeah, well, the sales amount, everyone wants to know sales amount by state. So we can see California is pretty big. We can see we get a drill down, so we can then drill down into the different cities that we have within here. Now, this is all powered by Bing. So what's happening is behind the scenes, it's looking up where do those points need to go on the map. Okay, there's not an intelligent thing within Power BI, it's going a lookup service. Because it's doing a lookup, it's entirely dependent on what you do. So if, for example, we removed, let's come back up at here, and let's say we remove state, so we've just got city, you'll see cities will appear all around the world because city names are used across various areas, aren't they? So especially with the US, big chunks of the cities in the US are from the old world. Is that the right way to put it? Probably not, but where people came from. Okay, so like New York is of course New York. York is still there in the UK. I think sure London is there's a London in the US as well, for example, things like that. So we can kind of see what happens with that when we don't get these things correct. But what we could always do, of course, we know, yeah, because we can say, well, by postal code and put those on a map. They're going to work. Let's put it as a legend, hasn't it? Oh, things are just sent to try me today, aren't they? Yeah, okay, so we've got postal code for that. So what we could do, though, is we could build a hierarchy for addresses. So what we would then do is we would go back to the addresses. Let's start with country. We're going to create a hierarchy. So I've clicked on that. I'm going to create a hierarchy. It's going to be the country hierarchy. Then we're going to have state. So I will add to country hierarchy. Then we've got, I should probably put region actually in there, shouldn't I? For all region isn't part of it. No, I think region is a legend thing, isn't it? And we're going to put city, yeah, country, which will, yeah, country, state, city, postcode. That makes sense to me. Yeah. Add to hierarchy country, and then lastly we will add postal code to hierarchy country, and then we'll do what we did before, which is we'll go through and we'll hide all of these. So left click on each one and hide it. Left click and hide. And you can see as well that I selected an item that now isn't available to pick. Doesn't affect it being used. It's already in use, so that's fine. Hide is not a delete. It's just, it's not available to pick. So you can build visuals with stuff and then hide them if you don't want people to be able to pick them and use them for their visuals. But you wouldn't want to do that, would you? Okay, so we've got that. So instead of this, what we could now do is we could bring in our whole hierarchy. So we can say, well, we're going to zoom in. We don't need the US, do we? So we can say, well, let's get rid of country from our hierarchy. Obviously, if you had multiple countries, you might want that. But now we've got that, we could say, well, I want to zoom in on Texas. So we could drill down into Texas and see the cities that there are. We could see, Houston, we've got loads. We could drill into Houston and we could see the actual points within Houston. So the postal codes within Houston and where we're selling items to. Then we can zoom back out again and we could do the same anywhere else. And then, as I said, I think in my mind, region is probably a legend thing. So we put, if we put region in, you see, we get legends to it. We can then color it by that. So we might have different teams, regional teams that are involved in selling to those. Okay? Yeah? Champion. So we've got our basic report that we've built now. Okay? One of the things I want to do is show you this. So what we can do is we can turn around and we say File and Publish to Power BI. I'm going to save our changes. Okay? Come up. I need to log in for this. So I will connect to my account. Okay. So we've connected, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this into back to basics. So publishing week 3 to back to basics. What I could do now is here, I will do, and I will share it with you so you can have a look and see what's going on with it. Okay, so we've got it, it's there. If I go to my Power BI desktop, my Power BI environment, you can see it's published. I can click to view the report here. Okay, brilliant. I've got the report as we did before with pages 1, 2, and 3. Okay, of course, page 1 where we were dragging things and dropping things. Yep, summer sales is not working because of the way we've made changes to it. See, because we had DAX, fixed those in DAX, and everything else that used it downstream works again. So because you drag and drop, that's a risk. Something happens and you break the relationships, or the relationship structures change, this can break. In this case, I believe it's because of the country filters that probably the fields really don't exist anymore. We can click edit and edit this to see. So yes, it's state. So if we came in here, we'd have to go to addresses. We could bring that in and say, look, let's bring in state there. Let's remove that, and we don't want country. Sum of sales, and we've got ship mode. So what we need to do is bring ship mode in as the legend, and it works again. Okay, so that's easy to do. We did all that online, and that's want you to remember that. Okay, so I've made those changes online, but if we go back to our Power BI desktop file, they're still broken. So because you can edit content online, your content offline potentially isn't aligned, even though I've just published it. I might have published it and I've got to go and present this to my boss now. I'll just quickly tweak that, fix it. There we go. He's going to say, or she is going to say, I want these changes. I'll go back, open Power BI desktop, make the changes, publish it. It's what you said, boss. Well, what about that? That looks stupid. It's broken again. Okay. This is one of the things that becomes a real pain in the neck, and is why I always say do it in a particular way. Okay, and it's one that's difficult. We can't really show in demos too well, but in the real world with your business, this works really well. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the semantic model. Now this is, of course, the important bit of our Power BI file. And what Power BI Desktop does is it creates a model and a report. So it's creating two artifacts, but it makes you think of them as one. But if we go back to Power BI Desktop now, and if I go, let's go to create a file, new blank report. Okay, it's going to open something up. What I can do here, when this opens, is I can say, I want to get data from an existing model. Okay, So we're going to connect to a Power BI semantic model. I'm going to click on that. It's going to open up and say, well, these are the ones you've got available to you. I could choose, say, well, I want this one. I could choose, say, well, I want to work against Newcastle Park runs, the last video series we did, all these interim ones that we've gone through. And this list is based on what I have access to. So I am, of course, a developer for in this environment. You will be a developer in your environment, but anybody else will only see what they can see, or even you as well. So if two developers in two different departments are working on different things and you don't have access to each other's data, you won't see them. Equally, you can say, well, you're a big part of the development team, but we've got the HR model that only two developers can access. We can do that. Being able to access this isn't necessarily saying you've got full access to it as well. You've got access to data as not saying you can read it to your heart's content. You can still have role-based access going over on top of this access layer, which is going to be a real game changer when you get right down to it. But I've come through here. I've clicked to say, well, I want to create this. I'm just going to go down here and say connect. Okay, zoom back out. And Power BI Desktop will open. I've got all this. It looks just like it was before. I've got the tables on the right-hand side on the data. But hang on, wait. I've not got the data view. I can't just view the tables. Okay, this is now in query mode. So the model is in the service, but I can choose to say, well, I want to know. So we looked, didn't we, before it? We could say, well, let's bring ship mode in as a slicer. So I'm going to choose that as a slicer. Make that smaller. Okay. We could then say, well, let's bring in products. Okay. And then we could say, well, products, we want to know about sales amount by product. Okay, so I've just brought that in. That's not too difficult, is it? So far, we're kind of making sense of this. This is easy. What we can do with this is we could choose to right-click and drill down into technology, into phones. Okay, so we're actually starting to really filter and see what is happening across our data sets. Okay, and the last thing we want to do, of course, is let's bring in, if we go into our addresses, let's bring in our lovely map. Okay, so we'll get rid of country. So we've got this. And what I'm going to do with this is I want to put in the quantity. Okay, so we can bring quantity in as bubble size. So the total quantity of things that have been shipped. So we can click to say, well, what about this? We could choose, well, if we pick same day, what's going on? How does that reflect versus everything else? So we can choose to actually start to really see what's happening across our environment. Okay, it would be nice if we actually had some indicators on there, wouldn't it? So we should put some, let's go to here, not there, I've pressed the wrong button, haven't I? Yes, no, it's the right button. Formatting, let's put in data labels. Okay, let's do the same here. Category labels, do that. Okay. Okay, so we're starting to build something up, aren't we, where we can see what's happening. Okay, so I've done a few things. You can imagine I've built this, whatever the report is I need. I can then just go and hit and say, well, publish it. I need to save it. Secondary. Okay, so I call it secondary reports. I always call them secondary reports. Microsoft calls them thin reports. I'm not comfortable saying thin reports more because that means we have to have fat reports as well. Whereas primary and secondary reports, I don't know, that's me. I'm maybe being too woke, which given I'm a grumpy old man, I don't know what that means. If we come back to our service page now, and we refresh it, what you can see I now have is I've got a semantic model and 2 reports. And if I click on my report, it tells me where data exists. Now, okay, I published this to the same place. I don't need to. I can publish it to a different workspace, which is where we can start to discuss things like a workspace strategy. Because if your visualizations are in a separate workspace to the data, shouldn't your visualizations be structured around the users rather than the data? What do I mean? So if we built and looked at our sales team for their things, presumably it's not just sales that they need to look at. They'll be looking at other things that they've got for other systems potentially that aren't in our semantic model. They might have a phone system. How many calls were answered on time? How many calls were we late with? Do we got customer feedback? Is there a satisfaction survey? Is it, all these things potentially could all be fed back in. If we built multiple semantic models and we surface all the reports that relate to that area of the business up in one place, that's easier for them, isn't it, than putting it in multiple places? Think on that one. So Power BI doesn't just work by saying I've built one report, published it, that's all that exists. It's this idea that the semantic model that we build is the actual important thing, the most important thing in many ways. Dragging and dropping and producing secondary or thin reports, whichever one you want to go with, I'm sticking with secondary, it's incredibly easy to do. And when you get to the point where you say, well, hang on, you mean I can go and I can do this and I can just create and do it? Wow, yeah, it works. Do you know, if you went to Excel, modern 0365 Excel, you can connect to existing semantic models and build pivot tables. You go new pivot table from semantic model, and you can then pick that one, and the list is available to you based on who you are and what your rights are. So if I'm suddenly, I think, I wonder how many same-day deliveries do we do in Washington State versus Washington DC? Did we do them last month? The time it would take me to write the email to something that I think right? I could have done it by connecting to Excel or into Power BI desktop and building it for myself. The Power BI desktop interface is also available within the Power BI service in terms of I can build a report from here. What you can't do in Excel or in the Power BI desktop on the service side is create additional measures. Power BI desktop does allow you to create new measures, but in much the same way as your visual calculations, those secondary measures or those measures in secondary reports or measures in thin reports only exist within the context of that report. Okay. That's not to say they're terrible, because they're proper constructed DAX queries that work. So in theory, if you've got a good center of excellence built and somebody says, I've built this report and I had to write this measure, can you bring it into the main report so everyone can use it in other things that they want, or in Excel or anywhere else? No problem, there you go. Okay, we can schedule that and work through it. And it's relatively easy. You've just seen, we can copy and paste and put that in as a new measure into our main report, saying we can put it into a display folder so it looks good. The only issue you would ever have is if you don't use a different name when you publish it, the person who's got the secondary report, they can have a conflict because there's 2 items with the same name. Definitely a hashtag first world problems item, but it's worth being aware of. Okay, so you've got all those things that you can really dig into and extract and explore, and it will make a difference to your whole way of working, especially when that coin drops, as it were, that there's that, oh yeah, the semantic model is the important thing, and being able to connect additional data sets, or sorry, not data sets, additional reports to those adds to the power of it. because suddenly I'm not having to make this stupid model that only one group are going to use. I can say, well, look, we're going to invest time and effort on these models and expand these models, because if every team in the business is using one semantic model, or even if they're using 5 semantic models, I can guarantee that's less work than if I was having to manage 20 or 30 different spreadsheets of report content for different people. Okay? Yeah, that's true. Especially when I get to the point of saying, because it's published up into the service, I can schedule the refresh on it. So to use my real world example, when I started doing Power BI, I was working for an organization, and my month-end process was I would stay up until after 1:30 a.m. on the first of the month to run the SQL extracts to get the data out before too much came through into the system for the new month, because we didn't have proper scheduled extracts. Okay, so I would do all those things to make sure it worked. Okay, then I would spend the next 3 to 4 working days piecing together the various spreadsheet sources for all these things. Okay, invariably, I would have senior leadership team contact me, say, what's the number for this? What's the number for that? And you say, well, okay, based on where we are at the moment, it looks like it's about here. What's this exactly? And you'd have to give a number, and then invariably you'd have to go back and say, well, we've properly crunched everything, and it's 10 different. Oh, not gonna. Fast forward, say 6 months, as I had to learn and as the platform had progressed, and suddenly it was ready it was 2:30, 3 a.m. The report was ready on the 1st. Reports were ready on the 1st of the month. They were ready, they were accurate, they were properly built. It was after 2 a.m. because all the nightly backups were going on the databases. We let those all finish first. And then we did it. And then we used date filtering because we had a calendar table to say, right, this is all we're interested in. And it just was quicker, easier. It just, pains me to say it, but it just worked. So that's the kind of transformation you can get. So that's 4 work days of my time. So that's what, a fifth really of a work, maybe 25 days a month you can work, you're expected to work, is it? Some might say, 4 weeks a month, that's only 20 days, 22, 23 days. What's 4 working days of that, plus the half a day a week that I had to spend doing additional report loads. Suddenly I was able to do other things. And oh wait, I set up a whole reporting organization for the company, did all those other things. So it's not a case of saying, oh, because you free up this time, you get rid of people. You free up this time, they can do other things for your organization, make your lives better as a company. So if you like what you've seen, why not do the sensible thing? Be more Geordie. Get in touch with Geordie Consulting, and we will work with you to unlock the potential of your data environment. Got experience working with organizations of all sizes, and from small local businesses all the way up to large multinationals. Get in touch. The email address is consulting@geordieconsulting.co.uk, or we've got a link in the description down below to schedule a meeting for your initial consultation. So what I wanted to talk about today was really extending where we've got to with this. So the point of this was very much around getting you moving as an analyst. Okay, and if you want, you can kind of click on the QR code, take to my page on our website. You can obviously go there from my LinkedIn. You can download my V card if you want. Do all those sorts of things. You can find out a little bit more about me as well. As an analyst, though, one of the things that you're going to need to do is to produce report content consistently and regularly. That's kind of one of the things. Here is our Newcastle Parklands report, which is the last one we did. Now, this is around our exploration of data side. So you go from the basics of data analytics, where you have kind of the basics. There's nothing else there. It's just kind of like one day's data, which is what we started with this. We then went through to look at everything that went on in Jesmond Dean. And then from there, we've come to this third iteration now where we're looking at the whole of Newcastle. So your data will evolve over time. And that's really the key message that we wanted people to kind of embrace and get their hands around as we started with this. So let's go through and actually look at what we've done now with our data sets as we've been working with for this data, for this series. We're going to come through to our workspaces that we're working with, and this is our, my mind's gone blank. It was back to basics. Of course it was back to basics. Why am I? So we have the week 3 demo that we built. Okay, so we started doing some measures. We've got some things pieced together, but the main thing was we used the Tableau sample data set. We looked specifically at what was going on within how we pulled data together. So we've done some transformations. We've written some simple DAX. What I thought we would do for this one, though, okay, was going to be, we're going to pick a different data set, okay, because we're going to start from scratch and we're going to pull this together into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the GitHub site for us, okay, which is in the links to everything, which is here, these things together. So GitHub, Ross Geordie, Power BI _101. It's an open repository. Okay, hopefully everyone's got it. It should be in the link to this video in the description down below. I don't know where to go with all these. This is probably one of those things that's going to make me look like a complete buffoon for not knowing what we're doing. Okay, so we've got that first piece built now, haven't we? If we went through to our website here, to our GitHub, we can go here. We can see we've got week 4 start PBIX. Okay, so I'm going to click here for it, and then I'm just going to download this just so we can go through exactly what we need to do. It's downloaded it. I'm going to click on it to open the file, and we will drag it through into the right place. So for this starter file, what I've decided to use, because I went through a few things, I had a plan to use IMDb data, but there's some things with IMDb that wouldn't really work as we went through week 5, 6, 7, 8, because that's kind of what we wanted to do. So what I decided to use was one of my perennial favorites. Okay, I'm so sad and such a loser, but this is something I really do like. Let me just get to here, just in case any notes. Okay, so what I've done, when you open here, you'll see you've got just one folder over in the right hand side here. And watch me not have started. Oh no, I did. Yay! Okay, so we've got DAX measures. Okay, and under DAX measures, I've just had to write something, nothing special, just says measures go here. Okay, just purely so we have it, because your Power BI file, it has to have a folder really, otherwise it starts to get a little bit creaky. So what I've got here though, is if we go into home, and we go to transform data, we can see the data model that's here. And I've picked in here, we've got, click edit credentials, which is what you need to do. And this is going to be anonymous. So we're going to pick anonymous. It's going to be New York. We'll tell it to go all the way down to the bottom, just so we know we're getting right down to where we are. In terms of that, because you've got different tiers, your credentials may or may not work in different places. For a public report like this, it should be fine, but just as best practice, assign your permissions at the lowest level that you need, especially for anonymous. You want that right down on. Okay. What we can see here, suddenly, okay, we've got all of our report data from all of our water tower inspections that have gone on. Okay, but I've not done any transformation. We're just kind of connected to the raw CSV file. So we need to do some things for that. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we can see we've got row 1. It's kind of clearly headers, isn't it? So what we can do is we can say, well, we're going to use, here we go, it's on the transform, got use first row as headers, because that's quite a common one that you need to do in terms of making changes. So I'm going to click that, and it will then set that up. And we've now got our first row as headers. Brilliant. These are what we're going to need to use. Next thing we're going to do, so for me, we're in the UK. So we need to set some dates, but we can see these dates are in US date format. So what we can do now is we can hit the ABC, because it's picked everything as text, because it's CSV. But what we can do is we say, no, it's not going to be that. But we're going to use a locale. So we're going to set these to be date, but we're going to use, hasn't put that up somewhere else now. Okay, so we're going to pick the date, and this is going to be US, United States dates. Okay, and we can see these are now dates, and it's worked, and it's put them into UK date format, which is the confusing bit, that we've said US, but it's put UK. Right? It's how it works. So you're saying set it into date, but where it's in that locale is kind of what you're saying. You're not saying set the date, you're saying use that. So we're going to do the same with the batch date. This is when it was loaded. So we're going to say let's use that locale. So again, we're going to pick date. I don't think we need time. Well, should we pick date time? Let's pick date time using United States. Okay, we'll say okay, and that's fine. But actually, all we really need is the date. So we're just going to switch that down to be date. And we now just have dates. We say these were uploaded on the 14th of February 2025. So we've got a nice current data set. Okay, this is lovely. This is one of my favorite data sets, I have to say. Okay, and this is then going to be our hidden table, right? Because what we've got is a record of every building that has a rooftop water tower that's used for drinking water in New York. But obviously, every building or every tower has to be inspected once per calendar year. That's the expectation, that's the legal requirement. So what we'd have is buildings being inspected multiple times. So we've got a one-to-many relationship. And obviously we're talking about times or dates. So that gives us a calendar table. So what we've got is kind of 3 really simple dimensions that we need to have, or 2 dimensions and a fact. But we've got a clear hierarchy that we need to express. So we've got this as brought through as a hidden table. So what we can do now with this hidden table is we can actually convert that and set that up so that we're going to use, my mind's gone blank again, hidden table, and then we'll use this as the source for the buildings table and for the inspections table. And then we can bring in our calendar table. But of course, for you guys, you've already set up a calendar table, haven't you? We'll go through, we'll bring one in for the sake of this as well. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, we've built this as a nice basic thing. So I thought what we can do is we're going to right click on it and we're going to reference, and I'm going to pull this down into other. Just again, keep things simple. This is going to be buildings. So for buildings, what we're going to keep is we're going to keep this building identification number, bin, the borough that is, the zip, house number, street name, block, lot, and then lastly, far over here, we've got some other things coming through. So we've got things like, latitude, longitude. This is the joys, isn't it, of being on a session. Let's get these through. Building number, NTA, just going to do is right click and remove the other columns. Okay. And I'm well aware that it dropped all the other ones that we picked before, but what I can do is I can click on the cog here. And I thought it'd be worthwhile you seeing that. Click on the cog, brings you up a list. Which ones do you want to keep? Let's keep these. Post number, lot, the rest should be to do with, yeah, inspections. Okay, so now we've got our nice set. The problem that we've got here is obviously that this is based on what would come from the fact table. So we should have the building identification number happening multiple times. So what do we need to do? What we can do is we can right click on here and we can remove the duplicates. It should be that if we picked all of these, then picked on the rows, go with remove duplicates at the row level, it would work and you would get that distinctness. The nature of this data set, this is why I love it so much, is it's been built manually, and I'm not convinced that these things are as good as they should be. One of the things as well that's going on within New York, for the eagle-eyed of you, you will have noticed, oh, he's got bin and he's got BBL. What an idiot. So bin is the building identification number. BBL is the borough block lot, which is similar and seems to be being transitioned from one to the other. I'm not going to say which way, because from what I can see, it seems to be going bin to BBL, but I'm not sure. Okay, so at some point it would be nice. You might find you want to switch over from one to the other, but for now, as I say, what we'll do is we'll right click on bin and we shall go remove duplicates. Okay. So this will say, this is the first version of that BBL that we've recovered, or sorry, of bin that we've encountered. This is what we're going to use this for. So it's well worth it. It's nice to have, it's nice to be aware of it. Okay. So we've got that. Next, what we need to do is go back to sharing. We're going to right click on that and we're going to reference this. And from this reference, what we can see we've got is we're going to bring through the inspections. Okay, so inspections. And then this time, what we'll do is we can say, well, let's go with the confirmation number. Let's right click on that. When my right click works, and let's remove other columns. Okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this cog again and use that. So we want reporting year, tank number, all these various fields. It's just much easier to click with these than trying to hold down control, especially as it seems to be it's not going to work properly for us. Pick all those, got lab name, the tests, standard. Okay. And we've got the information for inspections. Okay, now this we don't have to remove any duplicates for or anything like that. This is just a row for each inspection that took place. The last thing that we're going to need is we're going to need to bring in a calendar, isn't it? So let's put in a new query, new blank query. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my GitHub page. And we've got here, calendar source. I'm going to highlight all that. Copy the raw file. Actually, let's just highlight that and copy. I don't know, don't trust some of these things. Okay, we've got here query 1, advanced editor. Control A, select the whole thing, paste it in, done. Okay. Now, let's just change this calendar. Let's go to click on here, advanced editor, and let's just take a minute and just go through what exactly is going on with all these. Okay, and I'll zoom in a little bit to make it easier. Okay, so all you need to be able to do is change these. Okay, these first bits at the top. So we've highlighted it to say only edit these values in the end of config. So you've got your start date. By default, the advice and guidance is use 1st of January for a particular year. Okay, so in this case, we've gone year 2000, 1st of January, January 1st. Yeah, you see the date format that's there. That's our default, just saying 2000. You could pick anything you want depending on your data that you've got. In terms of this, 2000 is where the first New York date comes through. I've then got two options. Okay, we've got this end date, which is year offset, or you can have a hard end date. If the way I've written this is if this is a value other than 0, let's drop down. It has, yeah. So this is a value not 0. Use that as your end. Okay, so we've put 1, which means that it'll say, well, we're going to go to the next year, the end of next year. If it's 0, then it will use the hard end date. So at the moment, you can see the hard end date is 31st of December, 2024. So I could have said, well, this is when my calendar is going to end. You may want one that's hard coded for an end date. You may want one that goes based on the current year. Okay, so we could have said, well, -1. Probably should have got -1, shouldn't I? But anyway, that was how I went with it. Got the corporate month. When does it actually start for your corporate calendar? Or, you could be saying, well, we're going to use the tax year that starts in April, which would be 4. You could say, well, we're going to use the whatever you want for it. So in this case, we've got 8, April, or August, which is for the business. And then lastly, you've got the start of week. What weekday does your calendar, does your business use? Yeah, for it. So 0 is Sunday. So we're saying Sunday. Yeah. A lot of businesses, it's Monday. Yeah. Anyway, the rest just goes through and builds the calendar. We can go through that at your heart's content at some point. We can discuss it. Nice thing for you, though, is it builds a calendar table very simply for you, and it's just available in our GitHub. That should be in the description down below, certainly in the descriptions of the other videos in this series, and it's not in that one yet. I'm sure it is, but I can't. Bit busy at the moment, can't check. Where we go from here, though, so we've got these 3 tables that we're going to bring through into our data model. So we're going to close and apply, and it will now go away and actually read everything in. Okay, I hope some of you are following along and have downloaded the data from our GitHub. It's good to be able to use that. We will start putting more things in there, and you may find as well there's some other things that we're going to use in today's video. So we've got 3 tables through now. If we go to the model view, we can see where we can bring inspections down, where we need to do. We've got the calendar table, but let's tell it first off that this is going to be a date table. So we're going to mark this as the date table. Yeah, so clicked on the 3 dots, mark as date table, confirm you want to do that. Which column's got all the dates in it? Dates, wouldn't it? And it validates to make sure that it does actually have a proper list of dates without duplicates or without gaps. It passes validation, and we can see it's now got a little person thing. I've got no idea why person ticks dates. I wasn't in that Microsoft meeting. Proof I'm not in the inner circle. So we've got that. So what we need to do now is we're going to link that to the report date or the inspection date, which is inspection date. So we're going to drag that, left click to drag, and it says, do you want to combine these? It's validated this is a good relationship. So it's gone many to one, which is useful to understand. You can go many to one, and equally with bin, we could choose to go, I didn't keep bin, did I? I've just realized. So what we can do, go back in to transform our data. And we can go back into our inspections. We can see where we've got that. We can say, Ross, you need to make sure you include bin. We will tick that box and then we can close and apply. And now if we scroll up, once it reloads, we'll see that we've got bin. So we went from fact to dimension before. We can now go from dimension to fact. Again, it's always nice to know these work in both ways. Oh, it's gone many to many. So something's not right. So what we'll do is we'll say, well, we're going to go buildings is going to filter inspections. I know exactly what the issue is. But again, these are useful things for you to see from this is real world data. The issue that we've got, and this is a regular one that I see many, many times professionally, is if we go back into here and we have a look at buildings, for all we've gone and said, well, we want this, the issue is there's going to be a null. So if we remove the null, click OK, because, well, we don't know the building ID. We're not going to be able to link anything to that to say, well, this is the building. Close and apply from now. When this comes through, okay, I'm going to let's go back into here. I want this to be a many to one, because that's the fact table, isn't it? Ah, so we've got a duplicate value. Gotta love a bit of real world data, haven't you? You wouldn't think I was following along with some work in the sample that I actually went through and built all this earlier this morning, just to test that everything worked with the latest data set. Let's see, we've removed duplicates, haven't we? So what we can do is let's reference this. Okay, I'm going to mark this not to load. Okay, and this is this is a nice trick, nice to be able to do. So I'm going to hit group by bin and count the rows, just to see how many have we actually got that this is going through, or is it a case of something else that's happened? So we've only seem to have ones. Sort that descending. Load more, make sure we've got the values. Let's go to the column profiling at the bottom. Again, this is common when you're going through and you're having to do column profiling. Let's pick that against the entire data set. This will always slow down what you're doing. So don't do that if you're going huge things. Do that when you need to do something to understand what's going on. We can choose to view column distributions, column profiles. We're actually getting a bit more information about what's going on. We can see we've only got one. So whatever we've done, it is worked. It has worked now, and it's just potentially that our refreshes haven't caught up. I'm going to call this building validations, okay, just because we were trying to work out what's happening there, weren't we? Come back, we're going to close and apply, and then what I'm going to do is when this does all come through, I'm going to refresh the whole page, or the whole data set. So let's refresh that. I'll just make sure everything is now reloaded with whatever the new schema is. And then what I'll do is I'll delete this relationship, and then we will recreate it just to figure out why is that not working. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, delete the relationship, yes. Go from bin to bin, one to many. Okay. I love Power BI, it's great. So we've got that working now, okay? We can now see that what we could do, or what we need to do, is just do some more data classification information around here. So for latitude, for example, click on that. Under the advanced, we can pick data classification latitude, or data category, sorry, latitude. For longitude, we pick data category longitude. Okay. Let's write some measures. Okay, so one of the things I always say to do is to make sure that you've got, let's right click here, new measure. And we'll call this inspections. Okay, and it's going to be count rows of inspections. Okay, it's always useful to have simple count rows measures. So we've got that, and then let me just select 1,000 separators, its whole number, and again we're going to create a new measure. And we're going to create buildings. We're going to count buildings, okay? Because for what we're doing, building count is going to be really important, isn't it? Actually, how many buildings are there? How many buildings are there? Kind of a key question. Okay, so again, buildings, count rows, buildings. Okay, super simple. And again, I'm going to hit the 1,000 separator. We've got that. So if we come back through to the main page that we've got, what we could do straight away, and bear in mind, how long have we spent on this? Not that long. But we could come through and we could say, well, we can actually pick longitude, pick latitude, and pick inspections. Okay, and straight away, we can have a nice view and see how many inspections have we had taking place across New York. And that allows us to zoom in, doesn't it? But what we should do as well, probably just to make things nice and easy, is let's put borough on as a legend. Okay, so we can see where they are with our lovely Bing maps that we're all using in real world. Everyone uses Bing maps, don't they? We can switch to the Azure maps, as I say. Microsoft are in the process of trying to get everyone to switch to those. I'm still seeing some issues. Obviously, there are other maps, and especially the biggest issue we've got so far is that despite them saying it's available to use in public reports that we share our data sets with, like the Newcastle report pack, it's still blocked. So it doesn't fully work. But what we've got anyway is a nice view that shows us what's going on. Okay, so we can see starting to model is simple enough that we go through and we look at these things, we look at these things, we look at these things. One of the things that happens and that we haven't really discussed is there will be areas within your report that, or within your data, that potentially you're not going to notice or not be aware of. So let's see what I mean by that. Okay. So one thing, firstly, that we probably want to be able to see is it'd be useful to understand who's actually doing these inspections. Or we could be saying, well, we're interested in finding out what lab has been doing. So let's look at the lab, shall we? So we've got lab name, and then we can bring in the inspections, shall we? Let's bring in lab name and inspections. Okay, so which lab is doing all the inspections or the most of the inspections? Okay, I'll tell you what, let's make this a table because we might have some finance people on the call. Okay, and they like tables, they don't like pretty charts. What we can see straight away is that we've got some, I think a technical term would be chaos, wouldn't it? So we've got EMSL analytical, environmental building solutions, environmental building solutions. And there's slight variations in the spelling that's gone into them. Environmental and environmental. Yeah, environmental. So this is a problem, okay, that you will get with real world data sets, especially with text where it's used. Okay, now if we scrolled all the way down, we'd probably find some that there's like kind of one or twos that there where again, like environmental buildings, LLC, environmental solution LLC, not very stuff. It would be useful to be able to kind of understand what's going on with this. And one of the things I did when we were looking at this properly in the past was we've written an Excel spreadsheet that goes through and allows you to filter that and sort through those. We've also done some other things as well. The main headache that you have with Power BI in particular is because it brings it through Power Query, which is case sensitive, differences in case even make things appear as multiple rows. So it could be as simple as kind of here where we've got environmental building solutions, all lowercase, environmental building solutions, LLC here, which I know, well, there's one uppercase, there's one lowercase. You know, those potentially should be the same one, but we also say this one should be the same one. So what can we do? What would be our simplest solution to this? Fundamentally, you're going to need to do some level of manual validation with this. I'd recommend, if you're interested in doing something like this, we revisit the Excel spreadsheet, which is the simplest. Again, it's using Power Query to do it within Excel, but you use Excel, or you send Excel to go and read in the CSV file, also read in its lookup table that it's built, and then it produces the output into the lookup table. So it's kind of recursive because it's looking at itself, but it means that any new ones that need to be mapped, you can map and then use a drop down to map to the other column. And you go down and say, well, this and this are the same thing. Yeah, so we'd be saying that our environmental building solutions LLC, our environmental building solutions LLC, LLC, they are the same thing. We could do that. But there's some other things you can do just to kind of start the process within Power Query. So if we go back through and transform our data, one of the things I've done, and I'm not even going to try and hand type this, so go back into the advanced editor here for our hidden side, okay? And you can't, oh, I can't, I thought you could. Oh, it's going to be awkward. Right, if we go back to here, you can see I've got week 4 code. And eagle eyed, if you say, oh, well, these are the 2 that he's already written. There's one we're not written yet. That'll be coming through, won't it? So I'll copy these within the stars. And I'm going to come back to here. I need to add a comma here. And Control V to paste that. And then lastly, I will remove the extra text that we didn't need. Now, what this is doing, let me just make sure it loads before I talk you through it too much more. It's always useful to know that something works, isn't it? I'll just zoom in on this, actually. Okay. So what we're saying is, for lab name, let's just select, and the underscore means for this row, and select everything between A to Z, A dot dot to Z, as uppercase, lowercase, 0 to 9, just in case there's numbers. I don't think there are, but I thought let's leave that just in case. Oh, yeah. And then lastly, we've also kept the spaces, okay, just so that we still have meaningful words. What you could also do, and again, this is one that I ummed and ahed about before we put this in, but I thought, well, let's leave that as it is, because what you could do is we could pick this and we could say, well, what we want to do under transform and text, we've got format. And this is where we could say, well, we want to make everything, like capitalize each word, make everything uppercase, make everything lowercase. And you might find that you get more matches that way. But what we've done, why is that not removed all of those things? Table, fix inspections, does not help when, okay. So there we go. So we've got them both fixed now. I will update that on GitHub. But anyway, yeah, you need to change the table name. So I'll do that after the stream. You'll be able to see. So what we can see here is we've got a nice view, haven't we, where we've actually tried to do this. We could close and apply this. And hopefully, close and apply. We're going to see some reshuffling here, because certainly that comma will disappear. We could try putting everything into lowercase, putting everything uppercase. That might be the way, actually, uppercase. I had been thinking to go title case, but we could say, actually, let's make everything uppercase. So we're getting there, aren't we? It's looking better, I think. But we've still got here, we've got EMSL analytical, EMSL separate. We've got EMSL, ESML. I'm guessing there's not two, but someone presumably has just, so there could be two. And this is where it gets difficult. This is where manual validation starts to be required. But what we've built already, isn't it? We've built something that's going to start that piece of automatically trying to re-coordinate things and to remove, hand keying errors. Some of these could be someone's picking something else. This is something that you'll find happens an awful lot, though, in ERP systems. Real world ERPs invariably have things like this. So we've got that, haven't we? Now, the other thing that we could do is, I was thinking, well, every building needs to be inspected every year, don't they? So I thought, well, let's actually go through and let's have a look at this. And what I've got is the inspected in year. Okay, and I'm sure some of you is going to go, well, it's not written very efficiently. You could write a better DAX measure than that. So we're going to go through, so let's create a new measure. I'm going to paste that in here. Let's zoom in so you can see what I've written. So we've gone, let's get the year from today, and then let's get the maximum year based on the context that we've selected. And then if, basically what we're saying is that if today, that should be the other way around, shouldn't it? If today is greater, no, yeah, it was the right round, yeah. So if selected date, yeah, is bigger than today's date, use today. Otherwise, use the selected date. So this is around, if we've gone through and picked multiple rows of data, how are we going to pull it together? And this way, we're saying we're always going to max out at today's date. So we're going to go with the current year as a maximum if we work with everything, as opposed to trying to go to a filtered way of working, which is what you'd want for everything else. Okay. And then what we've got through here is this inspections. So we're going to count the rows of the inspections by the calendar year, and then we're going to divide inspected by the building count, because in theory, every building should be inspected at least once in the year. Okay, so I thought that's brilliant, perfect, job done. So we come here, we can go inspected in year, right? Paste that in, you can see it's 0.1. Now again, no context to the year, so it's picked it out to be this year. And what I need to do is let's tell that this is a percentage. Okay, and let's just put one decimal place. I think 2 makes it feel like it's trying to be too accurate, isn't it? So we're at 1%, which, we're midway through February. It's probably a bit of a lag in terms of paperwork. So, we're a month in, we're at 1%. I don't think that would be too bad, is it? I'm sure New York seems to be quite cold during the winter. I wouldn't want to be inspecting rooftop water towers in January. So, maybe that picks up throughout the year. What we can do, though, is we can say, well, does it? So let's bring in year. So we've got year. Drop year on there. Okay. And now we can start to see, what's happened? Let's just sort the axis out. Power BI, you keep telling, you must want to do this. No, I don't. You would think I marked it as a date table. It'd be a lovely idea if things from the date table would then sort by date by default. Too complicated, presumably, for Microsoft. What we can suddenly see is we've got these values here. So let's make that a table. We can see how things have been inspected over time. Now, it's interesting, I think, that if we're looking at these, we can see numbers definitely have increased. 103%, 116, 100. Have we inspected buildings multiple times? I think the interesting one for me was that 2020 seemed to be like an all-time high number of inspections, which did something need to be done with COVID? Maybe it was. Did you need to maybe, if you'd had an inspection already, that you had to redo it? Have to go back and check New York's things. Or maybe someone can tell us they know these things. So what we can do next is say, right, the missing piece with this, isn't it? Because there is a missing piece. Of course there's a missing piece. Okay? I'm deliberately cheesing you. I am deliberately misleading you. That's the correct thing. What I meant to say is, if we come back through into transform data, okay, there's two things. Thing number one is going to be around, actually, we're looking at buildings. One of the things that we removed, if we look in the removed other columns and we zoom in here, is we removed, well, you can't see because we've gone with the remove other columns, haven't we? Ugh. What we didn't bring through, if we scroll all the way down here, sorry, not all the way down, it's just here, isn't it? Tank number. So we need to keep tank number because a rooftop may have more than one tank. And of course, each tank needs to be inspected. So potentially what's happened is pre-2019, you could have done those as one inspection and just filled out a form. I don't know. It's interesting to go from 80 to just over 100%. So something's changed. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to bring in tank number. And then the next step that we need to do is this brings in some interesting other things as well. Actually, because I should have actually, well, let's bring something else in as well. So one thing is that over time, things can disappear. They get deleted. So we can put in deleted as well, I think. So we're going to click OK. All right. So we've got two things now. Now, let's zoom back out. We've got this removed duplicates, haven't we? Okay. So we're removing duplicates from bin. Now, the more I thought about this, the more this is okay, we need to be clear with this. So what I think we need to do is actually where we've got this, we bring in one more column, bring one more back, sorry. I'm going to bring back, we can either choose reporting year, or we could choose to use inspection date. I'm going to use inspection date just because I feel that may be better. Okay, so we've got inspection date. So the first thing we're going to do is let's sort that descending. Okay, so we're going to insert that step. Okay, and we're going to sort this descending. Now the reason why we're doing that, okay, is because when we come to do remove duplicates, we want to keep the top one. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add a column. Okay, so I'm going to choose to add a column. Add a column. Okay, and I'm going to add a column, add a custom column, insert. I should have put this in there, shouldn't I? So we want the building identification number and that. Okay, so bin, and we put, let's put this in, and we've got colon and tank number. Okay, simple, wouldn't it? Hit OK, there we go. Jobs are good. Oh, they're all errors. Why would they all be errors? Can you think? This is one of the things that we haven't talked about. Or we have, but we haven't really covered it properly. So Power Query is all about data types, and data types can only be handled in certain ways. So what I'm doing with this is we're taking two numbers and treating them as text because we're putting text in between them. So if I took this out, for example, let's just do that. Okay, correct. hopefully that will work. No, it won't. Okay. I was like, stupid thought that'll work. Oh, I need to put an ampersand on this. If we put an ampersand, that should will it make it work? No. I don't know why I'm thinking these things would work. I mean, trying through. So what you need to do is you need to say this is going to be text dot from. Okay, text dot from, open brackets, close brackets, and then we'll do this text dot from, open brackets, close brackets. Okay, so it now is going to say I've got strings, I've got strings, and I've got strings. And if we zoom in, we can see. Okay, so we've got a clear indication what we're going to go on. Okay, and then I'm going to say that is text. It's just nice to give everything a proper data type. Insert that, and then for this remove duplicates, let's go up over to here. So we're going bin, and we've gone bin tank. So bin tank. Okay. So now what we should have is a unique list of bin tanks. Now the reason for going down, descending by date is if something is deleted, that should be the final record, isn't it? The latest one. Whereas if we go just based on whatever, we run the risk of going from the bottom up and finding that, well, nothing's been deleted. So hopefully, if I come home, close and apply, actually not close and apply, let me remove this. Removing null from bin, and then let me also just remove inspection date. Okay, just want to remove inspection date. And we can close and apply. We could have also, no, we can, yeah. We could have put deleted in the inspections and left it at that. But I think this makes more sense to me. Okay, so what we can do now is hopefully we can come back once this reloads, go back over to page 1. Duplicate, have we got duplicate value? Oh, of course. We'll have duplicate values, won't we? So we've got that. So what we would need to do, isn't it, is put in, we need the tank ID, don't we? That's the step I've forgotten. I was thinking I've forgotten something. We need to bring in that tank ID, and we need it to be in starting, and we need to keep that here. So what we can do is we can say buildings here, editor. Well, we don't need to go do that editor. We can do that again, can't we? We come through here, add columns, add a custom column. Typical, I can't believe I made that boo-boo mistake with you guys. Bin tank ID. Again, I'm going to do that. So text dot from, remember it's case sensitive, open brackets, bin, close brackets, ampersand, colon, ampersand, text dot from, open brackets, tank none. Okay, there we go. So we've got that, and we're going to say that's text, remember, and this is now in everything. So we can go back to buildings. What I'll do is I'm going to remove that, remove this new one, yes. What we need to do here is this is going to be bin tank ID. Where's my new column? Still thinking about things. This is always the annoyance if you mess things up during a demo. Catching back up. Refresh, come on. We've got that, haven't we? Oh, of course, it's because we've removed it, haven't we? Let's change those. Let's keep that. Let's keep that. Then tank ID, there we go. Just remove duplicates, won't be happy. What is it? Bin. My mind's gone blank. Come here. Nice thing you can do is double click and then you can copy. So do that. It's easy. There we go. Okay, we could have removed the step and gone back in and said do it that way. Okay, so we've got that. So remove duplicates there. Okay, inspections here. We've got bin, but in theory we don't need bin anymore, do we? What we really need, we're not really interested in the actual building, we're interested in the tank. So we've got bin tank ID. So we can use that as our join. By removing bin from there, it should mean that it will load without, because the relationship is gone. And we shouldn't have duplicates. Let's apply those changes. Let's check the model view. Just need to let this run through. Okay, so that went through, that's fine. We can see buildings. Let's go to building tank ID and bring that to bin tank ID. Many to many again, isn't it? Why is it many to many? Let's just pick this going from buildings to there. Something it does not like, isn't there? In there. Shouldn't be duplicate tank numbers, shouldn't it? Building ID. That's dreamy. I have to have a look into that. Okay. What we can do though now, give you guys something to have a look at and work on, is if we were to come through and say deleted. Okay, let's put that on the page here. And this time let's make this a slicer. So pick on the drop down. Let's pick slicer. Pick slicer. So you can see the buildings that have been deleted, or the tanks that have now been deleted, as opposed to not deleted. So it gives us, we've got some information here. So we're doing better than we were before. Okay, and potentially we could put that in for our completion percentage, couldn't we? So we're coming up towards an hour. Okay, don't forget, right, to actually go through, have a look. You obviously follow the QR code. You can follow me on LinkedIn, things on there. Drop us an email, send us a note saying what you want to see, what you don't want to see. You know, if there's things that we can do here. Obviously, one of the things that we've got here with the New York data set, or this New York rooftop water towers, which honestly is the gift that keeps on giving as far as data is concerned, is we've got data validation questions that we need to do. We keep stumbling upon them. I love the way it comes through. We've also got time intelligence, which is one of the things we want to do. We need to do some more advanced DAX. So in terms of, we've gone in, we've done that more complex, we've done the simple kind of sums. We've done this one, haven't we, though, which is kind of where you're starting to use a bit of variables, doing things like that. refreshing context, using a calculate. These are all things that you should be getting comfortable with as you become a more experienced developer. But then you get questions. So, how many buildings should be inspected? What's the status of a particular building? Is this building compliant, non-compliant? These are all things that we can do, and we can put those measures in. So we'll go through and we'll do more in here, but we can also do things, as I say, with time intelligence, with more advanced measures as we look at the Superstore data set that we've also got. So let me know if there's any particular orders you want to go through. In terms of my plans, week 5, I was thinking we should actually do more basic DAX, the basics of DAX, try and really understand kind of what are the basics of DAX, what basic DAX tools do we have that we can use within Power BI desktop itself, and then are there others that we can look at. So we'll actually take some time, we'll look at DAX Studio in particular as well, and we'll probably extract and have a look at a VPAX file week 5. Week 6, we should do some more advanced DAX, shouldn't we? So we'll actually do some time intelligence, looking into what time intelligence is and how we can put those and fold those in to use a calculation group, for example. Okay, so we'll put time intelligence into a calculation group, as well as just looking at the basics of time intelligence. Then week 7, I thought what we should do is look at some of the other things. So we've got field parameters and disconnected tables that we should really get comfortable with. If you're going to do more Power BI development than just kind of like drag and drop a little bit of basics, you need to be comfortable with field parameters, you need to be comfortable with disconnected tables. So those 2 things we'll do as week 7. Which should then mean week 8, we can kind of come back and do another live session. You guys can give some feedback and tell me if there's anything that you see that you don't like, anything you see that you do like. And then hopefully you'll be all happy and you can let us know where you want to go from there. Do we need more, or are you kind of at the point saying I've had enough? Because at that point we probably want to start looking really at the Power BI service and how we maximize the Power BI service, how we use metrics, how we use secondary reports, connected Excel spreadsheets, those kind of things. Okay. For now though, I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I hope you share those, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, get involved, follow Geordie Intelligence. Stay safe, take care, ta-da.